What's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace episode 122 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net, and look at who is back.
Hasn't been that long, has it?
What?
Hasn't been that long.
Well, you've missed 2 of the last 3 episodes.
Okay.
Because you were gone, back, gone, now back. But now you're back for good, right?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah. So Matt came through. You're feeling okay.
Okay, getting there.
Maybe okay is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's minor surgery. It takes a while.
Yeah. Still healing.
Yeah, but all the test stuff came back. It's all negative. There's no cancer. There's no anything. You're stuck with me for a while. So.
Wouldn't have it any other way, brother. Welcome back. Let's see, a couple housekeeping things. I know it's Monday, and you guys are like, why the hell is GameFace streaming on a Monday? Well, we didn't want to wait a whole week to get a show to you guys, so we decided to stream on Monday. Totally realized probably our on-stream audience will be a little smaller today because people aren't expecting the show. But we didn't want to go like a whole week without an episode.
Too much stuff happened.
Yeah, a lot of stuff has happened. We actually have a really good show for you guys tonight.
We got a bunch of games to play.
A lot, man. I gotta say, this last week has been one of the best weeks of playing video games that I've had since Q4 of last year.
Yeah.
It's been great to have so many good games to play, and it's been kind of overwhelming because...
3 big guns in the space of very little time.
Absolutely, and all this has been going down while we're producing Pachter Factor 100, which, by the way, is going to be awesome. It's all being cut together tomorrow. We have a lot of... I know you guys saw some stuff on Twitter about what we've been doing for the episode.
I saw a boat.
Yep, but that is just a very small fraction of what's going on with the episode. So,
beer on a boat.
Yep, beer on a boat. Marcus, beer on a boat. And so the show will probably be going live tomorrow evening-ish.
Is that Pachter's boat?
It is Pachter's boat.
Pachter has a boat?
Yes, he actually has 2 boats.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd want me to call it a ship.
Yeah. He only, I think he goes 50-50 with a friend on the boat, so he actually doesn't own either one of them. But I guess if you put the 2 together, he has 1 boat.
Oh, it's a timeshare.
Yeah, apparently. But anyway, the episode should be going live tomorrow evening at some point. We haven't even started cutting it yet. We're still collecting all the assets for the show. It's going to be a long day of edit tomorrow, getting the show ready. But we hope to have it done for tomorrow night. It will absolutely be worth the wait. It'll absolutely be worth the fact that GameFace is getting to you guys a few days later than normal. What else? Let's see. Subscribe to us on Twitch with Twitch Prime. We are way below last month. It's so annoying. I don't understand why they don't let people subscribe and just let it automatically renew.
No, I can't. I've gone to resubscribe mine as well, and sometimes it turns over the first of the month. Sometimes it waits a few days. Sometimes it's
I've had someone reach out to me and they're like, it seemed like I tried to resubscribe and it wouldn't let me. The system's a little
twitchy.
The system's a little twitchy, definitely. But if you guys haven't done that already, we'd really appreciate it. Like I said, we're way behind what we made last month off of Twitch Prime. Maybe it's because everybody's given all their money to Ninja, who's making $500,000 a month off of that program. I can see how, totally. I mean, I'm shocked at how much revenue we make off of it, to be honest with you. Or at least last month I was. So, yeah, I mean, if you imagine if somebody has 20,000 followers even on Twitch, and you get $250 from each one of those guys, that's
adds up.
That's a lot of freaking money.
That's how NPR works.
I mean, I still think that at some point they're just going to pull the plug on it. I just don't see what they're getting back for that money. I don't get it.
On Amazon?
Yeah. I mean, they own Twitch, and then Twitch takes half. It's like, why are you taking half of the money from your parent company? It's really bizarre.
I think they're just. It's the point is to drive Prime membership. I think that's all they care about.
I guess. If you have already done that, I really appreciate it. It really, really makes a difference to our business. So we just started putting the show back on YouTube. YouTubers, if you guys can't afford to contribute to our Patreon and you watch GameFace and you watch Pachter Factor, just use Twitch Prime and give us a free $250, man. It's so easy. All you gotta do is
every
link
other
your
month,
account. Or whatever.
Vary it. Do what you need to do.
I mean, you're getting hours and hours of entertainment out of our YouTube channel for nothing. So, and this will cost you nothing. Just go on Twitch, link your Twitch and your Amazon Prime accounts, and then just click the little button above our player. We will appreciate it very, very much. Ninja won't know that you don't give him $250. We will know that you gave us $250. We're a little guy. We actually notice the difference when you give us that stuff. So appreciate it if you take the time to do that. Obviously, our Patreon is at patreon.com/sifted. If you do have a couple extra bucks banging around, would be awesome if you could kick us some money on our Patreon. Even if you just want to pledge for 1 month and buy Matt and I a beer or something, whatever. We appreciate every dollar. And I think that's it. We have a great show today. Tons of hot games. Let's get right into it. So we're going to kick it off with what I think might be my favorite game of 2018 so far.
Ooh.
At least until God of War comes out maybe here in the next few weeks. Ni no Kuni II. I just want to say right off the bat, I did not really enjoy the first Ni no Kuni. I played it for 12 hours, and basically the only reason I even played it that long was because Marcus Beer loved it. And
that's because he's drippy.
And Marcus, I mean...
In this series, Welsh people are magic, so of course Marcus likes it.
That may actually be why. It might be why. But he kept trying to convince me to play it, and I would keep going back. I could not get into it. And
I found it... the thing about the last one is like the real-time but turn-based kind of combat thing, like, was a grind after a while.
Yeah.
This game is almost everything that was in my head when I played the first one, thinking, it's too bad it isn't like this.
Yeah.
And then they did all of it in this one. I would agree with you. I think this is the best thing I've played this year.
It is a great game. So you're seeing the opening cinematic right here.
Which is one of the most shocking openings I've ever... I mean...
It's really crazy.
So the first scene in this game, they nuke New York.
Yeah. So this is the president, I'm assuming,
the president
of the United States.
Yeah.
And he's driving to a summit in, they don't say what the city is, but it sure looks like New York.
It's New York.
And then New York City gets nuked.
And then he wakes up in the other. So that dark-haired, like tall guy in the blue-gray coat you've seen that's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Transported to a fantasy world, and decides to just kind of team up with this like little king kid with ears and a tail who mentions that he's half cat, which means his dad fucked a cat.
Yeah.
Which they don't seem... I mean, the cats are anthropomorphic in this, but there's some furry stuff going on in here that they don't seem to get into the details of, but I'm waiting for the world building to kick in.
I haven't finished the game yet.
No, I'm waiting for the world building to kick in.
So he gets transported to this magical fantasy land. There's this child king.
And there's the dark... You can see him, the Black Knight, who's like... Because there's the mice, the rodents seem to be overthrowing the cats.
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
And they have this Black Knight, which looks, for all the world, like Mickey Mouse cosplaying Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Like, it's with
he
the
looks
ears...
a little bit like Meta Knight as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, obviously not a chibi version like Meta Knight is. But, so anyway, this is the king. This little blonde kid is the king. Evan is, which is weird. And then
my girlfriend insists it's a girl.
I thought it was too.
I'm like, no, it's a boy. It's Evan. It's a boy.
It might be a twist. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just he's a page boy haircut kind of looking. It means kind of a bob. Okay.
And then the president's name is Roland.
Right.
And so this king is like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, you just appeared in my king's chambers. As soon as they meet, the rats take over and basically start a coup and overthrow the king, and the king has to flee the castle.
Yeah. Also,
with
it de-ages the president, who's not displeased by that at all.
Yeah,
like he's cool with that. it de-ages him and gives him a badass ponytail.
Yeah, and then that sets the whole story in motion. And essentially, I don't want to spoil too much, but I kind of have to explain part of it. So he cracks off on his own with Roland, and he starts to form his own kingdom.
Right. That's what, I mean, Revenant Kingdom is kind of the subtitle. Which is because
that's where the world building comes from.
Yeah, so he's in exile, and basically it takes like, I think it took me almost 6 hours to get to the part where you actually start building the kingdom. Like, there's a substantial journey.
It is. I think there may be even more than that, honestly.
It's interesting because like it hits a lot of the same kind of cliches as a lot of JRPGs and kind of anime tropes, but it pulls them off better somehow. Like, and it keeps it moving. Like one of the things I thought like was a flaw in the first one was like you basically it followed that kind of episodic JRPG thing where you'd go to a new town or whatever. Everyone would greet you with weird skepticism about whether you're pure in motive or whatever, and you'd have to solve the big problem of the town like every JRPG, and like. You know, and then they're like, "Oh, you are actually cool. Now we'll help you." And then you go on to the next thing.
And you gain a party member, and
this thing does that, but it does it faster, and it does it like with a little more verve somehow. Like it doesn't annoy me that I've seen all this before because somehow everything sort of comes together in a different way.
It's also very bizarre how Roland ends up having things from his prior world on him. He has a cell phone, he has a gun,
Yeah.
He pulls out the gun and shoots that guy. They're like, what the what? What is that?
Although there are guns in the world, it's like blunderbusses and stuff.
Yeah.
I've just never seen a semi-auto Beretta.
Handgun,
And he's pretty good at sword fighting.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah. So this is an action RPG. We should have.
And he also gets to keep the suit, which he busts out at a trial later in the game, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And they're like, the other character's like, why are you wearing that? And he's like, because this is a court of law.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, yeah, he's a lawyer. He would.
Yeah,
it's a nice character little moment there. I like that.
Yeah. So actually, one thing I should have mentioned before we started the show today is we had originally planned on doing play views for both this and another game. And we ended up being a chord short. We were going to demo the combat system of this game for you. But we can't do it, so we're going to end up, because the traffic's terrible. It took me like an hour to get here. It was like a 5-mile drive. It took an hour.
And
I missed you. My text message was too late. Yeah, so we have to describe the battle system to you. The battle system in this game, this is what I think really makes it so much better than the first game, is the combat. It's all real time. It's a total action adventure.
A lot of combo stuff. You have 3 different weapons. 3 different melee weapons and a distance weapon.
Yep.
And the melee weapons all build a percentage up as you use them.
What's the system called again? Quench, or there's some word that they use.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, so you stack your 3 melee weapons.
Yeah, so like they kind of go up to 100%. When a melee weapon's at 100%, you can use your special abilities with it. And when you use your special ability, it drops it back down to 0%. It has to build up again. So the idea is you have to keep switching between your weapons to keep going, and
you can set it on automatic too.
Yeah.
And the game will just do it for you, which is actually how I'll admit that's how I've been playing.
I have it on semi-auto, so I can switch when I need it.
That's what I have. Yeah, semi-automatic. Yeah.
Like there is an automatic setting where you literally can't change it, and then there's a manual setting where you have to change automatically manually every time.
So it makes you watch your weapons.
Yeah, and each weapon has a build affinity, so there's a green and a red and a blue, so 2 green. If you want to mix that up, because if you have 2 greens, they'll both have 100%, and when you use the affinity or what a charge for it, it takes it away from all the weapons and you have equipped of that same.
It'll drain all of them.
Color, so you want to mix and match.
Yep. And then you have a projectile. You have a gun or a bow.
Yeah, you got limited ammo.
Some of the characters have they'll shoot magic or whatever.
It's nice to have a little thing to get a little distance on them. And then you've got the Higgledies.
Yeah.
The Higgledy-Piggledies.
They add a lot to the game.
Who are like the equivalent of like the dust sprites in Totoro.
They remind me of Pikmin in a lot of ways.
A little bit, yeah.
Pikmin are chews from the Sonic
they're
franchise.
Every weird, cute little spirit thing in anime ever.
Yeah.
They're adorable. They have different colors to represent the elements, and you get little groups. You can equip a bunch of them at once. Right now,
5 groups at once.
You can have up to 4 or 5.
Is it 4?
It's 4, but you have like a 10-point scale, and you can only equip enough. Different, more powerful ones take up more points, so you can only equip enough that add up to 10 points.
But each one has 4 different abilities.
Yeah,
they'll
and some
heal,
are passive,
they'll
some
attack,
of them are not. But like they'll do a thing where like they'll kind of during the battle you'll see a circle appear around them. You run into it, press X, and
that's the one thing I do not like.
And they'll
that you have to physically run into their little circle and hit X to activate their abilities. It seems to me there should be an easier, better way to do that. You can see the circle right there, actually.
I kind of like it because what I've noticed is if you switch over to because I spend most of my time playing as Roland in the battles.
Me too. I always have him first in my party.
If you switch over to Evan, he's usually in the back because he's kind of the magic character. He's usually in the back, closer to where the circles happen.
Yeah.
So I've kind of early on I wasn't using them much at all.
You can see right there that cannon to the left.
Yeah, it turns into a cannon.
That is from using
the dark purple ones have like this giant like black hole singularity attack that just is amazing. Like, it's really good for bosses.
I mean, the game is gorgeous. There are moments where it's a little rough around the edges.
I found it because I assume you're playing on regular PS4, so I'm playing on Pro. And it's gorgeous. The HDR is amazing. This thing looks...
The coloring
it just
in this...
pops
It's probably the best-looking cel-shaded game I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it's...
with all due respect to...
Yeah, to various...
some of the Dragon Ball Xenoverse stuff.
Yeah, but this is incredible. And like, it's also like on my TV, the HDR kicks in because when you start it up, it shows that big picture of Evan on a balcony looking out over the city. And the HDR kicks in like after that picture's been up for a couple of seconds.
There's that attack you were talking about right there.
And you can see what the HDR does to this art style, and it's amazing.
The game pops.
Yeah.
Like even on my non-HDR TV, on my base PS4, it looks amazing, particularly in like the close-ups during cinematics. There are on the base PS4, it does slow down at times. There are frame rate issues.
Yeah. It chugs a lot in the overworld screen.
Even on the Pro, it does for you.
Chugs a fair amount, like because there's an overworld screen where you have like kind of dungeons where you run around like in this form, and then there's like larger overworld things where everybody's sort of little chibi versions of themselves, and they run around a bigger map.
Yeah,
and on the
which is a total JRPG trope.
Oh yeah,
I'm kind of surprised that I almost feel like they put it in the game just because.
Well, there's a lot of
because there's some dungeons where you never go to that view, and the engine's fine. Like I don't understand why they do that at times.
It's just easier, I think, to build something of that scale on that scale rather.
Yeah.
So like you've got the big area of the continent out, and then you save the really detailed, more constructed areas for kind of the more dungeons and the story-driven stuff.
Yeah.
There's an element of that in even the presentation, which I find weird. Is that like
you can see it, and it matters which way you approach an enemy as well. So you want to approach an enemy from behind if you can.
Yeah. Also, you can be surprise attacked if they hit you from behind, which I actually had to turn my back to one and get hit that way because it's very hard to get screwed by this. It's not like Persona or like Persona's ready to kill you at any given moment. Like the game's pretty easy.
The game's really easy,
and
that's probably my biggest complaint with the game is how easy it is.
Yeah,
it doesn't,
and there's no difficulty setting, so
it does not scale well.
No, you can overpower this game without trying.
Yeah,
which that doesn't bother me. I'm here for the experience.
And honestly, I think it's the Higglies that really unbalance it because once you start to get good with them and really understand how they work.
Yeah,
combat is just
they are the great equalizer, basically. Yeah. If you don't use them, it's a little more challenging. So that would be maybe like your difficulty setting might be whether you use Higglies or not.
Yeah, maybe I should stop using them to make it more challenging.
I just don't care about challenge, so
yeah.
I enjoy crushing shit. Like that's what I like about RPGs is becoming so powerful you can one shot the thing that annoyed you earlier.
Yeah. I like to go through phases where you get like that, where you're overpowered and you can really appreciate all the work you've put in. But then I like when it resets and it goes back to being hard again. Well, you got to work your way through it again.
As you progress, you run into more stuff, and the dream dungeons are pretty hard once you move forward, and there's a timer on them.
There are also, you can find enemies in the overworld that are way OP for you. Like you'll be level like 25, and they'll be level 50 if you want a challenge.
Yeah, you see, there's a little Xenoblade to that. You see that sometimes, and
they're clearly labeled. You can see the levels above.
Yeah, they usually glow purple.
Yeah. So you don't get caught off guard.
You're not going to get screwed.
You can pick and choose if you want to do it that way.
So, but it's a lot of fun. Like the combat is fun.
Here's what I'm really shocked by.
That's not common.
Here's what I'm shocked by is how good the combat feels. Yeah. This game is developed by Level 5. Level 5 is not exactly known as an action game developer. But the hack and slash combat in this feels absolutely great.
I mean, they did Dark Cloud 2, which felt real good. I mean,
and I'm glad you brought that up because there's
a lot of Dark Cloud 2
this is Dark Cloud. Yeah. Dark Cloud.
And I got no problem with that.
I hated the art style in Dark Cloud. It was like the ugliest, like weirdest, like it looked unique. I thought both of them were that way. But the design of this game comes from Dark Cloud. All the world building stuff. Which we haven't even started talking about yet, is the world building. So after you play, it took me longer than 6 hours before I started getting to the world building. Maybe I was poking around more than you, but it took me a while before I got to it. And essentially, you finally find this piece of land where you want to build your kingdom, and then
you have to have a tactical battle.
Right.
Which is a whole other thing.
Right, we haven't talked about that yet. Yeah. So there are parts of this game that literally are Pikmin. It is Pikmin.
Yeah.
Like you have your main characters in your party.
It's like Pikmin described as a military war game.
Yeah. Except the controls in it are kind of weird.
It's very simple. It's simple, but it like to me that all that stuff almost everything in this game evokes Suikoden.
Yeah.
Because Suikoden had those simple kind of army battles or sort of like a rock paper scissors like strategy thing.
Yeah.
This has a little more depth to it, but it's the same kind of thing. It's the same kind of thing that's trying to give you the feeling of running a kingdom. And that's a good way to suck me in. Like the kingdom running thing for some reason like attracts my attention in these kind of action RPG thing. The other game that like really pulled me in, if you remember on the Wii, was My Life as a King or something.
Yeah, I remember that
little King story. It was like a Square game, and I like Final Fantasy stuff in it. I played that for like 100 hours.
You're not alone. I mean, most people can consider that game to be top 10 ever Wii games.
It was like, and this isn't as, I guess, like complex because you have to kind of play the RPG part to get the pieces to do the world building stuff because there's a lot of like you have to build the individual houses, but you have to staff them with people you pick up, which is where the Suikoden thing comes in for me, because like the whole thing where you gather people and like staff your castle with them is something that I really love.
Each person is rated in 3 different categories, or is it 4?
I think it's 4. And then sometimes they have a special talent, which makes them more suited for one thing or another. Like there's a lot in here.
Yeah, so you assign people.
You walk around your kingdom, which I love.
Yeah. Like you assign people, so you build buildings, and each building has a different thing that it will improve. It'll improve your weapons, your armor, your magic, but then it starts to get really granular. Like as you start building out, like you'll have like something that will just help you like with one specific buff. And you assign people to work in those buildings, and then you choose the research you want them to do. And then X amount of time, depending on how skilled the people are who are assigned in whatever category you're trying to build, that will determine how long it takes for them to develop that technology.
Which runs like, it's like a mobile game where you have to wait actual time.
Actual real time, Like the first one they give you, it's like 10 minute, seconds. Yeah.
But then like the first, like, so
the first real one was
the first thing you did was like for me, like you had to, like you build a house that like can make new higgledies.
Yeah.
And you have to go find this old woman you talked to earlier to staff it, and so there's a side quest for that, and you bring her back, and I picked her first bit of research, like, my first higgledy brewing or something, because higgledies come out of cauldrons.
Right. Yeah.
And like it took like an hour. I was like, oh, okay. Like, we're just okay. I'll come back to you then.
What I'm discovering is this game is big.
Yeah.
I think I saw some reviews saying that they could finish it in 30 hours or whatever. I would be shocked if I could finish this game in 30 hours.
I think you could probably jam through the story in about that amount of time, but like I can't imagine why you'd want to. Like it's such a pretty game, and it's so much fun to kind of mess with the world building. Like I'm probably gonna spend 30 hours just dealing with the city building stuff. Like, Like
it's crazy extensive.
Like it's just because I enjoy it. Like it's a fun game. It's
rewarding.
I will say going back and forth between this and Far Cry 5 has been a little jarring.
No, it's been insane.
But like
it really has been insane.
But I really like. I mean, I know I said this was my most anticipated at the end of last year for 2018. Like, but I think I was right. Like it's great. It's better
really
than
good.
I thought it was going to be. Really.
What I'm really I'm a gameplay first guy. I say it all the time. That's what has really struck me about this game is how good the gameplay is, how great the combat feels, how fast it is, how responsive it is, how deep it is. We didn't even talk about magic, how you hit R2 and it brings up a menu and it's just press one button. You have 4 different spells equipped at any given time, and they're all elemental based. So obviously if you're fighting, and like sometimes you'll attack enemies, and if you try to use the wrong element, it'll nullify your attacks. So as things start getting more difficult, you face tougher enemies, you really got to pay attention to their elemental alignment and make sure you're using the right attacks for that. I am loving this game. And we're going to talk about Far Cry 5 in a bit, but I've had both of these games for almost the same amount of time now, and I find myself wanting to play this game.
Yeah.
Instead of Far Cry 5. And it's been a juggling act for the last 4 or 5 days of trying to figure out, okay, I need to make sure I play enough of both to talk intelligently.
I got very focused on Far Cry 5 for a while for a specific reason we'll get into when we talk about that. But I went back to this today, and I don't know if I'll be going back to Hope County anytime soon.
I mean, look, it's and I did pick this in our draft, and it's sitting at like an 85 or something like that. I think that's low. I haven't finished the game yet, but based upon what I played, that seems like a low score to me for this game.
Yeah, I'm not sure what. I mean, I didn't read a ton of the reviews, but it feels like it may not really contribute anything super original, but it is doing some stuff that a lot of JRPGs haven't done in a long time, at least not the ones I've played. And it does everything better than almost everything else I've played, with possible exception of the Trails in the Sky games. I think Trails in the Sky games have stronger character work. But Trails in the Sky has 6 games to do that in. But Trails in the Sky is the only current JRPG series I think I would compare favorably to this.
I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss a lot of people off. A lot of them probably haven't played this game yet, and I think seeing this game's version of the Lionel on screen right now inspired it. But so far, I'm enjoying this game more than Breath of the Wild. It's got a far better story, and it's got a bunch of different systems. It's not as flexible as Breath of the Wild as far as hey, I wonder if I try this, if it'll happen. This game is very rigid in that regard, but the systems that are in the game, the pacing of the game, the structure of the game, the depth of the combat, the story is miles better than Breath of the Wild. And again, that's just my personal preference for what I like in games, but I'm enjoying this more than Breath of the Wild so far.
Yeah, it would never occur to me to compare them, really. It's just too different to me.
They're two action RPGs.
Well, they're two different approaches to it, and Zelda's not an RPG. It's an adventure game. So I think obviously there's no physics play in this game.
That's what I was talking about.
The fun of Zelda is more the playing with things.
You can't put stuff together and build a flying airship.
Yeah, there's not a lot of emergent stuff in this. It's definitely more of a throwback than Zelda is. Although Zelda is also throwback because it's doing a bunch of open world stuff that everyone's done except Nintendo before then.
Right.
But I think Zelda's more of like a greater than the sum of its parts thing, and this is more like all the parts are really, really good.
Yeah.
If I could only pick one to ever play again, I'd probably pick this one. Because I feel like after 900 Korok seeds, I don't need to do that, game again.
You did milk Zelda for all it was worth.
Yeah. But I could see myself playing this again the same way I replay the Suikoden games regularly. This game just has it's just not. They're not the same game to me in any way, shape, or form. Although they do have a slightly similar art style in a way.
Yeah.
This one just it presses all the right buttons, and the fact that it has the Studio Ghibli character designer on it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the art in this game is amazing.
Honestly, the only real criticisms I'd probably have are the slowdown, like I said before, and the fact that so it's mostly text. There's some full voice stuff, but there's mostly text, which I'm fine with because less voice and more text. Except they use full voice scenes for the important scenes,
right?
And then the rest of it's just text, and I prefer that.
Or they'll just have they'll say one word, okay.
Yeah, they do the persona thing where it's kind of like what? Yeah. Like that kind of thing, which is fine. Because I can read faster than any actor can talk. And to get through kind of the exposition, I'd rather do that. And in fact, Yakuza 6 is kind of annoying me in that everything is fully voiced now. And the side quests take a lot longer when
get on with it,
instead of just clicking through everything. Because
the
side quests in the old games used to be all text.
Yeah.
So I kind of dig that. The one thing that's weird is every once in a while, a text scene will suddenly become a fully voiced scene.
Yeah.
Because some of them are fully animated cutscenes like what you're seeing here. Some of them it's just the lines appear in the text, but the voice actors say the whole line.
But then all of a sudden
it becomes that. And I've skipped a couple fully voiced lines because I didn't realize we were in that. And that's the fact that they just sort of jump into that is very strange.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me really, but it's a very weird presentational choice. So that's a thing to keep your eye out for, I guess. But other than that,
there's a couple.
I feel like this game's nailing
it. There's a lot of grammatical errors in the text. That's just being nitpicky. And there's a couple moments where the graphics look a little rough around the edges.
Some of the text errors might just be the Welsh accents.
Yeah.
For some reason, your Kingmaker, who's the little sprite guy,
talk about the Kingmaker.
Little sprite guy you need a little spirit thing. Usually a giant monster, but you get a little spirit guy.
But for whatever reason, your Kingmaker is this little Pokemon-looking thing.
Yeah, probably because you're a new nation, right? That's probably the thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure by the end of the game, he grows into a giant dinosaur or something.
Yeah.
But he's just got this dumb, vacant expression on him. But he's similar to Drippy in that he's kind of a Welshman with attitude.
Yeah.
And they write all his text like that, and so
now that they spell differently on purpose.
Yeah. But the thing is that makes me slow down and read it more. Wait, what the fuck did he say? I can't tell what the hell he said. And I try to picture in my head how Marcus would say the line, and then it makes sense.
Right.
So all the fairies in this game and Kingmakers have Marcus Beer's voice in my head. Because he's the only Welsh guy I know well enough to know how he'd say it.
He's the only Welsh guy I know. Unless there's someone on Sifted that's...
I know a few Welsh people, but he's the only one I've been around enough that I know how he'd say almost everything.
Right.
And so he is basically...
Welshman.
Yeah, he is the Kingmaker. Not to be confused with the Freshmaker.
Yeah.
It's a very different story.
I would say, look, if you've never liked JRPGs, I don't think this is going to change your mind.
No, this is more like a really, really good take on action JRPGs.
I also like this more than Persona 5.
I would agree with that as well.
There's not all these weird broken systems that they try to jam into the game that can't be rectified across other systems. This game is kind of airtight in that way.
And this game doesn't spend 10 minutes every single time they meet a new character recapping the premise of the game.
Right, yeah.
Which was Persona 5's specialty, as though I haven't been sitting here for 12 hours
right, yeah.
playing. It's like, you don't need to explain what's happening every single time. In this one, at least, all you have to do is be like, yeah, Evan's the king. Come join the kingdom. Cool. Like, that's the end of it. Like, it moves, it's fun, it's bright, it's bouncy, it's got tons of different things to do. If you get bored of one thing, you can do something else.
There's variety in the game, absolutely. That's what I really like about it as well, and all of them are handled really well.
And it's just fun to hit things with the pointy stick, even like on a very basic, visceral level.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
I think go buy it. I don't think you'll regret it at all. I mentioned last night as I was playing it, I was like, man, this game's so freaking awesome. And I just wrote, like, hey, if you're sitting on the fence on this game, leap, go do it. Mm-hmm. And somebody wrote back to me, they're like, I didn't like the first one. And I'm like, I didn't either.
I like the first one, but I think this one is so much better.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, I recommend this one, like, wholeheartedly, whereas the last one, I'd feel like I need to give you a list of, like, things to be ready for. You know?
Yeah.
Because the combat in the first one is fine, but it's not... It doesn't grab you, it doesn't hook you unless you're really into that kind of approach. And this one, it's just tap, 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 hack, hack, slash, slash, combo, combo. Like, it's great. Like, it's tons of fun.
Go buy it, unless you absolutely hate JRPGs. And this doesn't even really feel a lot like a JRPG. Like, the overworld stuff kind of tips its hand a little bit.
Yeah, it's got a little bit... I mean, it's got a little bit of Dragon Warrior to it in some ways, I guess, in terms of kind of the look... In the same way that, like, you know, there's a lot of anthropomorphic animals and the world kind of has this sort of feudal, like, everyone's a king sort of thing going on. But, like, it's got a lot of variety. It doesn't stick to one thing or another. Like, one of the early places you go is basically Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff in it.
And then there's, like, there's kind of some investigative stuff in the game, or actually have to go and, like, hunt for clues and things like that. Like, they really switch up, like, the objectives and the things that you're doing.
Yeah, but part of the problem I had with that made the second kind of half or maybe the last third of the first game a grind for me was I just felt like I was doing the same thing in every location and over and over and over. And just already in this, I'm only probably 15, 16 hours in, but like already there's more variety in what you need to do and where you need to do it and how it works. Like you just because you're going to the next like big centerpiece location for the story doesn't mean you're going to be doing the same thing you were doing before. Because before it was like go through dungeon, fight 5,000 things, come back with item. All right, you're good now. Go to the next town. Like that's not how this works. And also every time you come out of a dungeon, come out of a major story quest or side quest, you usually are coming back with something that's going to make your city building thing. You can upgrade something, or you can add, assign new personnel to something to make something or the research possible, or level something up. Like you're always moving forward and upgrading and getting.
There's always something after every battle. It's like you check because you could have got a new weapon or something that you can fiddle with to set up your inventory with, or restack things, or resort who in your party is getting what. Like there's just always something to do in this game, and it's paced very well. Very little downtime. I really, really like it. If you trust my opinion in games and you don't hate JRPGs, you should go buy this game.
I agree.
All right, let's move on. Next gen is a coming, Matt. I think we're finally starting to see consistently week by week little hints and little announcements, little leaks here and there that have traditionally always tipped the hand that, hey, next gen is finally coming, and we're starting to get those. We got the rumors about PS5 dev kits being in developers' hands at least by the beginning of this year, and now we're starting to see developers start talking about next gen. I will talk about GDC in a minute. There was more stuff about next gen there, but probably the one that I think is most important as far as like, okay, the transition is coming, is that CD Projekt Red announced this week that Cyberpunk 2077 will be PlayStation 5, Xbox 2 ready. It did not say whether the game is going to come to Generation 8, meaning PS4 and Xbox One.
I mean, I would think
it's going to double dip.
Yeah, I would think it's the same thing. I think it's the scalability means I think you'll be, like you've said before, it's like it's going to run on both, but it's going to look way better on 5 and 2.
Yeah.
Man, we need to come up with...
They really need better nomenclature.
Yeah, I mean, PS5 is fine, but I need to know what you want to call the Xbox One 2. I mean, it can't be the Xbox One 2, right?
I wouldn't put anything past Microsoft
I guess
at
not.
this point.
Xbox One doesn't make any sense either. So.
It doesn't. And Xbox 360 didn't make a whole bunch of sense when it came out either. Neither did Wii. I mean,
you got used to 360 though.
Yeah.
And like, I still am not used to Xbox One.
Yeah.
It's still weird.
well, because there already is an Xbox One.
Right.
I mean,
Well, now it's the original Xbox.
right. Well, we call the first PlayStation 1.
Right.
I don't know what they're doing here, but this was really the first signal from a major third-party developer that, hey, we're working on stuff for next gen, and it may not be as far off as you think.
And didn't they say that like Cyberpunk is not their next RPG?
Yes. Witcher 4.
Who knows?
And yeah, they said whatever that other action RPG is coming before Cyberpunk. How is that?
I don't know.
I was like flabbergasted by that. I'm like, really?
I can only guess that Cyberpunk's going to really require some horsepower, I guess. Or whereas whatever they're making, you know, who knows what the other thing is. I mean, Witcher 4, like...
It's gotta be, right?
Focus on Ciri.
I highly doubt that they would launch a new IP in such short order.
My guess would be it's either Witcher 4 or a remake of Witcher 1. Which they were working on for a while and put on hold.
That's actually a really
ago.
good point.
Because Witcher 1, for all that I love it, is kind of unplayable.
Oh, no, it
now.
needs it.
And, I mean, Witcher 1 uses a heavily modified version of the Neverwinter Nights 1 engine.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing was creaky when it launched. And they were working on a 360 version of a remake of it before Witcher 2 called, I think, Legend of the White Wolf or something like that. And they put it on indefinite hold. But the thing is, like, Witcher 2 and 3 play utterly differently from Witcher 1. So redoing Witcher 1 into something that, like, a modern audience could play, and, like, you could play everything on kind of one console, I feel would be a pretty wise move.
Yeah, I never even thought about it.
And then that gives you the opportunity to kind of package them all up in, like, a Witcher trilogy thing.
Right.
And, like, it makes one, you know, the other two are already on the hardware that can, you know, be moved forward and upgraded. And, you know, Witcher 2 you can already play backwards compatible on Xbox One. And, like, if you put a Witcher 1 remake in there, you can bundle that stuff all through the next generation.
Oh, yeah.
You
For
know?
the next, like 10 years.
It's just income forever.
It's easy money.
So
once you get the assets up to that level...
So that would be my guess. I would probably say that was probably a little more likely than
I never even thought about that.
Witcher sequel would be, because I feel like they'd be saving that for the next gen tech.
Makes tons of sense.
But a Witcher 1 remake, like,
and they make a lot of money off of it too.
Take my money now, absolutely.
Because it also solves the problem of how does a studio the size of CD Projekt Red work on two games to be released within, as presumably a year or so within each other.
Well, one answer to that is apparently they work their people like slaves.
Yeah, which we've heard stories about.
But also, like, yeah, if you've already got the game basically made and you're just sort of redoing it, like that's under the sort of the template of, you know, make Witcher 1 but in the Witcher 3 engine. Like,
yep, because you have all the design done, you have all the voice work done. You just have to redo all the textures and some of the.
Well, you'd have to redo everything. You'd have to redo everything from scratch. Period.
Yeah.
You can't port any assets from the Aurora engine into a modern engine. That's not going to work. But you know what you're making, and you know what it is. You just have to do it. You have to rebuild it in the Witcher 3 engine.
Because a lot of time is wasted.
Oh yeah.
With hand wringing over the details, and we'll get a little anecdote about that in a minute with another game we're going to talk about today. But yeah, a lot of time is burnt during those design stages where they're trying to figure out exactly what the game is going to be.
Especially, I mean, The Witcher...
I think we may be seeing that right now with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think that's right where it is right now. It's kind of stuck in.
They have reinvented the game every time with The Witcher. Like, The Witcher 2 does not play like Witcher 1. Witcher 3 plays very differently from Witcher 2.
No, you're right.
So that is definitely would have been a factor with that series, but maybe not for them. Although, again, you got to translate everything that happens in Witcher 1 into how Witcher 3 plays, which is but it's not as labor-intensive as building it from scratch, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it took them like 9 years to make the first one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm starting to wonder how long it's going to take for Cyberpunk to get done at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly I think Cyberpunk can go in the announced a bit too early category right now, because how long have we done about that, like 2011?
Yeah. I think that's when it was announced.
Yeah, we're getting close to 10 years before that thing comes out.
Yeah. I'm assuming it is a very ambitious game. Again, CD Projekt Red isn't huge.
They're pretty big now, though.
Now, I mean, after Witcher 3, obviously they can hire out a little more. Did they launch another studio?
They have
I thought I remembered that they did.
They have satellite studios. I don't know if they're full-fledged, but they do have like 2 teams. They are big because I mean they are one of Poland's pride and joy. Like that company is a matter of national pride.
Well, you think about Poland
and it should be.
Game development. Is there any other brand that comes to mind?
Not on that level. And of course, I mean, The Witcher was a brand already. I mean, The Witcher was like Harry Potter big in Poland. It was fairly unknown outside of Eastern Europe before the games.
Now.
Although not if you ask the author of the books, who thinks that the books are what made the games sell millions of copies.
Right.
And it's like, bro, I've read the books. I bought them all. They're pretty good, but I never would have known they existed without this game.
Well, he lives in Poland, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It's probably hard for him to see.
I assume he's left Poland periodically.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he knows where the sales of his books are coming from.
He's just upset because he didn't get in on the profit sharing.
Right. He
sold the license to CD Projekt Red for like $5,000 or something, and didn't get
his
a cut
agent
of it.
screwed him
It was
over.
not a good move.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yep. Of course, at the same time, who could have possibly predicted that would catch fire?
Right.
In the way, I mean,
and it was a slow burn.
But you always take
the first Witcher did okay.
Yeah.
Second Witcher did a little better.
I remember getting a demo of The Witcher 1 in the BioWare booth next to the Neverwinter Nights stations in like 2003 or something at E3. I mean, it was like a table in a corner in the back of the BioWare booth, and this like Polish guy was like, "You want to see our thing?" You know, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll see it." Sounds because I'd heard the name The Witcher. I'm like, "What the hell is that?" Like that is the weirdest word I've heard this week at E3, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
So I want to see it. I thought it was pretty cool. So I waited.
They've done a really good job of kind of building up their capabilities game by game.
Well, also, like, it's a great property. It's a great idea. Geralt's a great character. The whole idea of a Witcher is a cool thing. It's like a Ghostbuster crossed with Batman. Like, you can't go wrong with that. It's cool. So
now that we're getting this news from Cyberpunk and a couple other things we're talking about later, where are you putting the next-gen console launch at now?
I mean, I'm not going to judge anything by when CD Projekt Red thinks you have something ready because you'll be here all day.
Maybe we should have this topic at the end after we talked about the other stuff.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't mean... end of 2019 looks like more of a possibility now. I still think at least one of them will kind of slip into the early 2020 at most. I don't think they're going to launch... I don't think both Sony and Microsoft are going to launch at the same time. I don't think you're going to get a PlayStation 3 Wii scenario here.
Yeah, I mean, that rarely happens.
I would guess PlayStation 5 goes first, Xbox whatever goes a year later.
Yeah, purely because of Xbox One X.
Yeah, One X is too close at that point.
Yeah.
Unless One X just tanks beyond all recognition and Microsoft doesn't think it's worth waiting for and just turns Xbox One X into the Xbox One whatever, like, or no, just like they launched their new thing and the Xbox One X just becomes the Xbox One.
Right. Oh, got you.
Like the S did.
Right.
The vanilla model went away and the S is now the Xbox One, and then the Xbox One XS would go away and the X would just be the only thing you could buy if you want an Xbox One.
Want to play last gen Microsoft stuff? Yeah.
But then, if you want to do that, you can just buy the new one and play it there because I guarantee everything's going to just backwards compatible forward from here on.
Yeah, it's really starting to seem like to me
the hardware
PlayStation
architecture
5
is just,
next holiday season, Xbox 2 or whatever it's called 4, 5, 6 months later, maybe around E3-ish.
I don't think they'll launch it then. It'll be they wait.
The record for that is so good though, Matt. Don't you remember the Saturn?
That's why no one's ever going to try that again. I mean, part of that was because it was a surprise, and they were telling there was no marketing. Surprise! There's a system there's a $500 game system in stores, and there's nothing to play on it except Bug and Clockwork Knight. Go get it. Yeah. It's like no.
And here's this other system that was just shown at E3 that's less than half the price, and the games look better.
Oh, it wasn't less than half the price.
I thought it was
$100 less.
I thought it was $299.
No, it was
PlayStation 1.
Yeah, and Saturn was $399.
Right.
That was the whole thing. Was they announced it, and then the Sony guy just got up and leaned into the mic. Well, because that was when the press conferences was everybody in the same room.
Right.
Just each company would get up and make their presentation in front of a podium, and the Sony guy just got up, leaned into the mic, and said, $299.99, and everybody just went and was like, that was the end of it. That was the end of it. Sega was over.
It was over, yeah.
It took them like 5 more years to figure it out, but Sega was over at that moment.
It really was. That was the beginning of the end for Sega.
I say that as a giant Sega fan through my whole life, but as soon as that was reported, I was like, oh, that's the end of this. Like, there's no way.
They gave it a good old college try with the Dreamcast.
That and you could see the PlayStation 1 stuff, like the 3D stuff, was just markedly superior.
Yeah.
No way around
and it was so bad at that. But
but
that's
compared to
with
the
Saturn, yeah.
Yeah,
that's some rough
the Tomb
3D
Raider
stuff.
comparisons. That if there was anything like really was the nail in the
Doomed
coffin, like the Saturn version of Tomb Raider was garbage.
It was, yeah. So,
And that was the one I had. So
yeah. So I think we're in agreement. Like, PlayStation 5 late next year, Xbox 2 to follow. Who knows when? I find it hard to believe that Microsoft will wait a whole year after the launch of PlayStation 5 to launch.
I think they will, because there's no other good place to do it unless they want to do it like Switch style in March.
It's what you're just talking about. Those comparisons are so unfavorable. Even with the
well,
Xbox
also
One
like
X.
okay, so like you want to launch in March, you're already kind of drawing the early year comparison stuff to the Saturn.
It did work for the Switch.
Well, yeah, but the Switch had Zelda.
Yeah.
Does Microsoft had anything as good as that in 10 years?
Well, here's the thing, though. So Microsoft, a few months ago, said, okay, we get it. I don't know why it took them so long to figure it out. But Microsoft said, we get it. We need more first-party stuff. We're bolstering that now. You figure...
In prep for whatever.
Right, they started that then. By 2020, mid-2020, some of those games should be ready.
Yeah. Maybe Sea of Thieves will be ready by then. That's a preview.
Good one.
What we call a preview.
Or a segue.
Well, no, because we don't.
Not quite. Yeah, a little bit.
Would have been nice.
A little early.
But,
yeah. I did a terrible job stacking this show. Apparently, this is what I'm coming to the realization of at this point. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about GDC 2018. Happened all last week in San Francisco. I did not go. I haven't gone for several years now.
AKA my Twitter feed gets full of people I know drinking together.
Pretty much, that's what it is. Yeah. That's my Facebook feed. It's just all my friends that I know in the industry getting hammered at Buddha Bar.
Yep.
That's pretty much what it is.
There's a period like the first couple nights where you just see people just tweeting in Facebook. It's just Buddha Bar. Like that's it. It's all in caps.
You just have to say one word, and that's where everybody just goes. Yeah. I do miss it. Like, seeing all those posts, I'm like, oh, I wish I was there.
Yeah, GDC has never had like the most exciting like game stuff.
Coverage-wise,
but I've definitely had
the
best social times, I think, at GDC, because everyone's a little more laid back.
No one has to work hard.
No.
There's nothing to report on.
You're just there to go like see presentations, and sometimes you're there to give presentations, but it's just in front of peers and not customers, so it feels a little different. It feels a little less like people are going to like freak out at you.
Yeah, I mean, if you were on Sifted last week, you probably would have had no idea that GDC was going on.
It's a low-key event unless you're actually making video games.
Yeah, it is really all for the developers, and it's a chance for the developers to get together and kind of put their heads together and talk about the stuff that they're working on.
It was the first like kind of big gathering event of the industry that I think early on in X-Play's history we decided to just stop covering.
Yeah,
because there's nothing, squeezing a show out of it became just unfeasible.
Yeah, I mean, we stopped going. I would actually take vacation time at GT to go to GDC, not because I knew that we tried to go for the first few years, and we did go because we had a huge budget when we first launched Game Trailers, and we basically needed to spend the budget. So we go to GDC, come back with like nothing really.
Right. Well, I remember in 2005, I got sent to do the GDC show with Morgan and Adam. And so I'm like, well, we were experimenting with narrative in the show at that point. I'm like, well, I'm going to do a through line where Morgan and Adam don't want to go to GDC. So the whole show is about how they don't want to be there. And like the last act, they go to the Fisherman's Wharf and have fish and chips. And
there was a time,
as I understand it, the organizers of GDC, the ESA was not thrilled by that episode. But that's the last GDC thing I think we did until 2008. 2008, we were that was when we were daily live. So we did a week of live coverage of GDC.
Wow.
Which,
I don't know how you pulled that off.
We pulled it off by, it was just wall-to-wall interviews. Like we just had everybody who would come and talk to us, we did it. And like, it was all right.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about GDC.
There was a couple years
GDC
where
and DICE are good.
Nintendo would do press conferences there.
Like,
I mean,
they'd swear it had nothing to do with GDC, but they were just going to be there.
Didn't Iwata show the DS for the first time at GDC?
That sounds right.
I think it was.
They've always done that, where they kind of
I thought they showed the Wiimote for the first time at GDC as well.
No, they did that. That was a separate event at the same time as TGS.
Oh, okay.
Because I was there for that. I remember that.
But that stuff doesn't happen anymore.
No. It's much more about kind of just like programming tips and tricks and kind of techniques and new tech, and like there's no game release at the show from the tech. But I will say, if you are interested in getting into game development, that's where you go.
Well, I mentioned this before, but somebody on Sifted is working on an indie game they reached out to me and they're like, "What should I do? Where should I go?" And I said, "Go to GDC."
Yeah,
and they went, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll see like groups of people with like, there's lines for various, the various developers and companies will set up booths to like look at your portfolio if you're a visual artist, or look at your I've seen people get in and if you're an indie game person and you've made a little game. Like, Devolver Digital, those guys will look at your game. Like, they'll play it. Like, I've seen the president of Devolver Digital sit down and play someone's game on a thumb drive and give feedback.
That's how Devolver
how it happens.
Games.
Well, yeah. But it's also like that kind of feedback is something you don't get.
Invaluable.
It's
how
really
you get
useful.
It? You email them, you're never going to get a response. It's a lot harder for someone to walk away from you face to face than it is to just ignore an email.
That is the most notable, I think, change of GDC since when I started going in like the early 2000s when I first got into the industry. Is like it's much, the industry is bigger. There's a pipeline they recognize now for being educated in school to then join this industry, and so there's more of a door there now, and an acknowledgement that there needs to be a way for these students to kind of like see what this is and get it and do some networking and talk to some people. And I know a few people who got both real lucky, but also like were recognized for who they were and what they'd accomplished, and it all started at GDC for them.
Yep,
so
it can happen.
It's a good resource to have in your back pocket.
Yep. So there were a few themes that popped up during the week. The first one was ray tracing.
Yes. Ray tracing, man, about frickin' time. I remember the first time I ever heard about ray tracing was in some of the preview content for Desert Strike for the Genesis, where they talked about how the Apache helicopter in that game was, the model they used was ray traced. Yeah. And how soon, that's how all game graphics would be.
We're going to be made.
That was, 1992?
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably the most recent surfacing of the phrase was the GameCube. Back when the GameCube was in development, they were kind of touting the tech behind it. Ray tracing was one of the catchphrases for the GameCube. And one of the few games that actually ended up using it, besides Metroid Prime used it, but also Eternal Darkness used it.
What did Eternal Darkness use it for?
Oh, the fog, or no, it's some of the environments, some of the lighting in the environments.
Yeah, the volumetric fog was also a thing.
That was a big thing for a while there.
I specifically remember playing a demo of that in Dennis Dyack pointing out the fog. In the tomb at the beginning where you walk through it and your feet make it move. That was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It still kind of is a big deal, actually.
There's parts of that game that still look pretty good.
Yep. So just for the
like all GameCube games, really.
Yeah. Just for the sake of education, somebody actually pushed back on us about that on YouTube when we mentioned that we thought the best GameCube games looked better than the best Xbox One games. There was someone on YouTube who was not a fan of that deduction at all.
I would still say I would put Rogue Leader and Metroid Prime over just about anything on the Xbox One.
Agreed.
Original Xbox. See, why? Why'd you have to call it the Xbox One?
Yeah, I know. It's annoying.
Never going to get used to that.
So here's what ray tracing means. It's a rendering technique for generating an image by tracing the path of light as pixels in an image plane and simulating the effects of its encounters with virtual objects. The technique is capable of producing a very high degree of visual realism, usually higher than that of typical scanline rendering methods, but at a greater computational cost. And I think that is what's really held it back.
And so, the holy grail on this has been doing it in real time.
Right.
Yeah, you can do it on stuff that
workstations and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's how Desert
Render
Strike,
farms.
the helicopter was ray traced in the sense that they did the ray tracing on the model, and then that static model was what they used to move around as an animation object in the game.
Yeah.
They were not actually ray tracing anything in the Genesis itself.
Right.
So the holy grail on this for 25 years or so has been something that can do it in real time and still have room enough to run a game.
To do everything else. Yeah. NVIDIA, Epic, several developers have talked about ray tracing at GDC, and they all hinted that this is going to be possible on Generation 9 consoles. Yep. Do you believe it?
I believe it, but I also believe that this is why the next generation will also not run at 60 frames per second.
Yeah,
like
I'm okay with that.
But people go on and on about, the next generation has to be full HD and 60 frames. It's never going to be. 30 frames a second is what people are going to target. And
they're always going to push to make the games look as good as possible.
They want it to look good because that's what sells.
It really does. Frame rates don't really sell games, sadly.
And
even though in some genres I feel like they're pretty important, but
obviously my favorite ray tracing demo was the Star Wars one.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous, man. Holy cow.
Which had more character development for Captain Phasma than both movies so far. So
I'm surprised they got the license to do that.
Who did it? Was that Epic?
Yeah.
No, that was Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm did that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was Lucasfilm.
Is that an ILM thing?
No, it's Lucasfilm's like internal research thing.
Oh, okay.
I think they are connected to ILM, but they are. I think they used Epic's tech, but that was a Lucasfilm thing.
Gotcha.
It's like similar to how they made that free Trials on Tatooine thing for VR. It's that same. It's the same group that did.
I mean, really, it's all coming from NVIDIA. That's what this is all coming from because NVIDIA's new cards. It's not Topaz.
Here's your Deus Ex 3 preview.
Yeah. But there's some kind of a new tech that NVIDIA is going to start putting in its cards, and it's going to
go straight to Bitcoin miners.
It's going to have the tech that can do ray tracing on the cards, but also have the older GPU tech as well.
Like a separate thing, so it's not stealing power.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
And now, NVIDIA is saying that's going to be the cards that are going to go into the next gen consoles.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of this is where like HDR is kind of your baby step, like kind of your stopgap half measure for.
Yeah.
This is going to make stuff look way better without having to up the polygons, up the texture resolution. The diminishing returns thing is hitting the point where like basically you need to do some new hardware tricks to make things look better because we've kind of hit the point where like pushing more polygons isn't going to help. Like you're already kind of at that level of fidelity. Now you gotta get the details right. Now you have to get the light through human skin, ears right. Now you got it's that.
There
kind
are
of
very
thing.
few games that I look at at least big budget games in 2018 where I say that needs more polygons. Some games that have a lot of environmental detail, like sometimes you'll look at like a glass or a cup, and you can still see kind of the stair step on the edge. Even in Madden, you can still see on the helmets. After all this time, you can still see those little stair steps on the profile of the helmet.
And some of that comes down to publisher and developer.
Absolutely.
Like EA knows no one's going to refuse to buy Madden because the helmets have aliasing on them.
Right.
But I bet you won't see any jagged lines on any of the glasses in Detroit become human.
Right.
It's
priority.
It's a priority thing.
Yeah. It's what you need. In some cases, you're mandated to spend your polygonal budget on certain things. And again, a lot of it depends. Like I said, usually I see it in games where you go into a room and there's like 8,000 things in that room that you can pick up and interact with.
Right.
And there you're kind of blowing your budget on quantity instead
of
quality.
There's some jaggies you'll see on like kind of the railings on stairways in Yakuza 6, but that whiskey glass.
Right. No, seriously though. No, you're right. The liquid in Yakuza 6 is the best liquid I've ever seen.
The ice
in a video
cubes,
game.
let me tell you. Melting in real time, Metal Gear Solid 2 style.
Yeah. I was impressed with these tech demos. And we do get tech demos every time at GDC. That is one of the things I look forward to from the show. Yeah. Is these guys just really showing like what we're going to be doing next.
If you got into the closed door demos at Epic, you were seeing Gears of War material like 3 years before Gears of War was even announced. Like, and they wouldn't admit it. They'd be like, "Oh, it's just monsters we made," but it's clearly whatever they were working on.
Sometimes
next.
hindsight will point in that direction as well. And then sometimes you get
some cool stuff.
Some BS. I mean, there's been some tech demos where they're like, "This is what's going to be coming next year," and it never does show up.
I mean, one of the first GDC I ever went to, the last thing I saw was Peter Molyneux's presentation where he announced Fable.
Oh yeah.
So yes, there is sometimes some BS.
Absolutely. Let's see what else was big at GDC. Nintendo. Showed a ton of indie stuff for Switch. Switch is quickly becoming like the platform for indie stuff. Everything's
another phrase you could use is dumping ground.
Yeah,
because so much of it is old.
No, you're right.
The thing I was most interested in, I think, was the fact that Shadow the Ninja, is it
Mark of the Ninja?
Mark of the Ninja. Which used to be, I think, Xbox only.
It was an exclusive Xbox game. Yep.
Now it's on the Switch, so I guess that they're
remastering it as well.
That's good. I mean, it needs it.
Yeah.
But the agreement, I guess that is over, which is good because that game is awesome and more people should play it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there are Pillars of Eternity 1, 2, and 3. The whole trilogy's coming.
That's a good get.
Yeah. 3 or 4 indie games announced as exclusives for Switch. They wouldn't say how long they were going to remain exclusives, but at least timed exclusives on 3 or 4 of the different games that were announced. So Nintendo's starting to invest some money with indies to get the stuff first, at least for a period of time that we don't know what it may be.
I mean, it's at least like Nintendo seems to be. I think it's safe to say that Nintendo is acknowledging the importance of indies in their schedule, because if they don't have these, it's just the same thing they've done for 2 consoles where there's nothing for months.
I think it's pretty. This is one of the exclusive games for Switch, at least at first. This is called Garage. But it's pretty easy to figure out that it's much cheaper and easier to throw $200,000 at an indie developer for 3 months of exclusivity than working with Platinum or Sega to create Bayonetta 3, where you're spending hundreds of millions.
And also, like, this kind of game seems a little more fitting for kind of a handheld.
How about this game? This pool game.
It's like billiard thing? Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, it looks like something you'd see at like an indie demo at PAX.
It does, yeah.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
It's the most interesting pool game I've ever seen. I'll say that much, which isn't saying much, in all honesty.
Yeah, but the strength of a lot of the indie stuff is you can these concepts get made that like would never have passed a boardroom at EA.
Yeah.
And it might as well be somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Nintendo showed like over a dozen new indie games for Switch, just like that. And it just showed a ton of new indie games for Switch not that long ago. And these were all new ones.
Yeah.
That
Well,
were
if you
announced.
they don't have the bandwidth to make, their top tier Nintendo stuff, quarter by quarter by quarter.
Yeah.
So
Luminous remastered.
Yeah. So by doing this, I think they've found a way to plug that schedule problem they've had for 3 generations.
Yeah.
And it's a good solution, especially if they can move it forward as going forward. It looks like this kind of their video here seems to imply that they're going to start trying to kind of make the Switch a more tempting place for indies to go. If not exclusively first, at least there on the same day one as everything else. And that's the most important thing right now, because right now you're kind of looking at a bunch of stuff you've had for 2 years on PC or PS4 or whatever. Yeah. But if you can get day and date with all the other platforms, I think you've got a larger audience there.
Well, the funny thing about it is that Nintendo's strategy is very similar to the strategy that I have with Sifted, which was, hey, we're this startup, we're just starting out, we're not going to have a ton of money to create original content, at least not enough to fill the channels every day.
Well, Nintendo has that money. They just don't want to spend it.
Well, I did not have the money, do not have the money. So it was a great way for me to make sure that the website was relevant every day, was to create this aggregator content curation service. For us personally, a lot of it was just, why would we report the same thing that everybody else is reporting when there's 20 of those stories out there already? Why are we going to report it too? But Nintendo's strategy of just making sure that there is always content for Switch is working. Whether you like the content or you don't like the content, or you like indie games or you don't like indie games.
Didn't work too well in February, but
yeah, it was a bit.
It's going to slow down.
It did. It came in third in February. The Switch. The first time it wasn't first since it launched.
Yep. Following Mario and Zelda is a tough act. It's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that
it'll pick up later in the year when Smash is around, and I think the Pokemon game looks more and more real as we move forward.
Well, I think what you're seeing is that the staying power of Zelda was far more powerful than the staying power of Mario.
Yes.
Zelda sold consoles from March to November. Mario sold consoles from November to January. Big difference there.
I think the argument can be made that Zelda was a newer and different thing.
Yeah.
In a way that Mario
180 Game of the Year awards or something ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And that's going to get people onto your... And plus a lot of people that would have... And look, if Mario had come first, a lot of people would have bought it for Mario, and then maybe Zelda wouldn't have done as well.
I think Zelda would. I mean, Zelda was a revolution in that series.
Yeah.
For whether you like it or not. Mario was another Mario game.
Yeah.
It was another Mario game in the form that I would prefer, as opposed to sort of the Super Mario World or New Super Mario Brothers mold. I think that's the other thing is like Zelda has a little more cachet, both in the sense that like Zelda doesn't come around all the time.
Yeah.
Mario's a much more constant presence in the release schedule.
Yeah, because he has all his little sports spin-offs.
Sports
and
things.
He has the 2D games.
The 2D games. You've got the
I'm surprised
3D
Nintendo
world.
hasn't started doing more. I mean, they do have kind of the handheld Zeldas. But I'm surprised that they haven't gone back to kind of that 2D thing with Zelda as much as they've gone back to that well with Mario.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Zelda just doesn't sell like Mario does, so there's no reason to kind of keep feeding that beast.
Maybe.
And Zelda's, I think they also recognize that Zelda has kind of become an event.
Yeah.
You know, and like you want to flood the market with it, it's not going to be special anymore.
Yeah.
And Mario can sustain that. I don't know if Zelda can sustain that. Zelda is more of a special event to me. I do feel like we're going to get the next one sooner because I think they're going to Majora's Mask it.
Well, they got the engine now.
Yeah, the engine. They just build a new map and go wild. Like that'd be great.
Hopefully, they really build some dungeons this time.
But yes, real dungeons would be like I said. You put some actual dungeons in Breath of the Wild, you got a pretty good Zelda game.
You have a really good Zelda game.
Right now, they got a good Zelda overworld.
Yeah.
Now you just got to put some dungeons in it.
Yep, exactly. And then it would deserve the scores that it's been getting.
Then it would be maybe the best game in the series for me.
Like, maybe one of the best games ever.
Yeah.
People think that already, but I think they're not realizing what are they going to do when they put real dungeons in that game.
Yeah.
What are they going to give it, a 15 out of 10?
Yeah. Well, it's your thing about like where if there's no story, you give it a 0.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what do you do
when there is one?
I mean,
how do you say that this game's better?
There's something to be said for judging a game by what it's attempting to do and not attempting to do, but it's not Zelda Breath of the Wild did not attempt to tell a story.
It didn't.
And in any real meaningful sense, and did not attempt to give me any dungeons, which is what I'm here for.
Yep.
So if they can make that more standard Zelda experience and sort of merge it with this new thing they've made, I think you're looking at an all-timer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The other big story from GDC was developers unionizing. Mm-hmm. So there were kind of protests and walk-ins, I guess is the way you put it at GDC, where people who supported unionizing among developers walked into panels en masse and kind of made a scene. And, well, how do you feel about that, Matt? Do you think developers unionizing would ultimately be to the good or to the bad?
Be to the good because they're horribly mistreated. The problem is there's always going to be somebody willing to work for nothing in that field. Like that's always been kind of the obstacle to the union idea is like, well, if you don't like it, then go away. We'll get four dumb 20-year-olds to do it for less than we pay you.
Yeah.
And no one will notice the difference.
Or not even just 20-year-olds. They'll start going to other countries to find people who can do it for a lot less. Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, is have you ever worked in a union environment before?
No.
So when I was in college, we had something horrible happen.
I assume the guy from Pennsylvania has a story about this.
I do have a story about working at a union house. So when I was in college, I was living with two of my friends, and two of us went out for the night, and our third friend was going out on a date. And he walked to we all left together. He was going across the street to go to the ATM machine. Me and my other buddy, we drove to downtown Philadelphia to meet up at this house party or whatever. We come back, the cops are waiting, and apparently when he had gone over to the ATM machine, he was mugged and he was killed. And so I took like a year off of school. I moved back home because I just couldn't deal with it. Like it happened like the week before finals, and I could not take finals, and my school basically failed me in all my courses for that semester. And I was just kind of like, F you. Like, I'm like, I don't want to give you my money anymore. I left.
Yeah, so, it seems like there should have been a little more give and take on that.
It was awful. Then basically what happened was they said that because it didn't occur on campus, and our apartment was literally catty-cornered across the street from campus. It happened 50 feet off of campus. And they said, if it had happened on campus, we would have taken care of you. But since you live off campus, we don't have any special rules for you. So go take your finals, or you end up with the scores that you... And so, yeah. So anyway, as a bit of protest, it was probably stupid ultimately on my part, because I ended up going back to finish. I left for a year. And so I went back and lived at my mom's house for, I don't even think it was even a year, because after I worked this job for like 6 months, I was like, I'm going back to college. And so I worked at a factory that was a union place, but I was a temp worker, so I wasn't actually a part of the union. I would have to have signed on full-time and paid my union dues and all that crap. And so I go in here into this factory, and I'm working. It's an automobile carpet manufacturing company. It was a company called Masland, and they made carpet for like every car. Like, it was just gigantic. It was like the size of like 6 city blocks. And that whole building was a union building. And so I go in there, and I am who I am. I work. I'd rather work my butt off and have the time fly by than stand around and do nothing and be like, oh God, when am I getting off work? So I went in there and just worked really hard. Well, after like a week of that, I started having the union guys come up to me being like, yo, like, you need to slow down. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like,
what were you doing?
What
was your job?
My job was, I ran this thing called a creel. And this is insane. It was this machine that's about the size of like 2 buses. And It was basically this network of frames that held hundreds of spools of yarn. And then every one of those spools was threaded through like all these eyes, kind of like fishing pole eyes, to this thing at the front that wrapped it in these huge spools of yarn that were like 10 feet wide. And by the time they were done, they were like this big around. And all I did was like, I get to work, they'd be like, okay, you're making green 581. And I go get all the yarn for it, load up the machine, and then I just make these spools of yarn that they would then send to this other machine that actually made the carpet, tufted the carpet with it. Anyway.
And you were somehow doing that too fast.
I was doing that too fast. Because what happens is they worked around the clock, and they took records. So the guy who worked before me, he was in the union. And he would finish, and they'd be like, oh, he got X number of yards done in 8 hours. I'd come in and work the next shift, and I'd do like double what he was doing.
So what's the like? That was how fast you could get the things and load them on
Set
the
them all
machine?
up. Yep, set them all up, and then get them all the lines running through the eyelets into the big thing that wrapped it all, and then would wrap it up,
you hit start,
roll it off. Yeah. And
so you were literally threading things too fast for them.
I was doing double what the guy before me was. And so if the first inkling I got was I came to work and the guy's like, yo, like I saw your logs from yesterday. And I thought he was going to say, you're doing a great job. Because he trained me. And so I thought he was going to like congratulate me and be like, man, like I did a really good job and you're doing a great job. No. He was like, yo, like you really put out a lot of yarn yesterday. And I was like, yeah, I'm like the machine never broke down and I just rolled the whole shift or whatever. He's like, no. He's like, you need to take it easy. Like, you need to take, are you taking breaks? Because, you know, you're mandated to take 2 30-minute breaks a day. You can't just sit here and run them. Like, it became this weird thing where I was this outside guy, and the union people were always coming to me saying, you're working too hard. The other problem that you have with unions is the employees are almost protected too much. So a boss comes to someone and says, I'm not happy with your work. The union worker immediately would be like, I'm filing a grievance. You can't talk to me like that. It creates this very weird environment, particularly if you have like contract workers who are coming in working with the union people, because this could very well happen where all their full-time employees are union, and then they're also hiring freelance contract employees who come in, and they come in, say Naughty Dog has a union workforce, and then some contractor freelancer gets a gig at Naughty Dog, and they come in, they're like, they want to kick ass. They want to get hired full-time. But what happens is then you have the union guys who are like, oh, no. We have a pace that we work at here, and you're coming in and you're messing with it, and you're making us all look bad. And it creates this very weird environment in the workplace where you're like, should I slow down? How do I slow down? Where do I go to like hang out so it doesn't look like I'm slacking? Like,
well, currently the environment is more like a rowers on a slave ship.
No, you're right.
I would say
you're right.
We're not in a good place either way.
Either way.
But like, yeah, at the very least, the threat of unionization could maybe make some of these major publishers be like, hey, shape up or you're going to be in a real difficult situation.
Because what has to happen is they have to get rid of crunch.
Right.
You can't expect people to work 80-hour weeks for months and months at a time. You just can't. It's inhumane. It's not good for them. It's not good for your product either.
At this point, I know it's not really how it works to some degree, but it's like, we know how long it takes to make a game now. Schedule it.
Yeah, exactly.
Schedule it.
Hire the people that you need. If you need to hire more people to just work that 40-hour week or whatever it is, 50-hour week, just hire more.
Well, it's been explained to me, like hiring more people doesn't really help at a certain point, especially for certain tasks in game development.
At first it doesn't, because it's the whole, like, you have to teach them our tools, and you have to get them up to speed with how we do things and our creative process, and what's the chain of command. If the creative director says this, who does that go to, and who disseminates that out to the team? All that stuff does take time, but you have to start somewhere. And if you start now, maybe that first game, the development's a little rocky, but eventually all those people that you employ figure it out, and they become a part of the team.
Yeah, but then they all get fired, and it starts over again, because they don't need that many people again.
Yeah, well...
Like, that constantly happens, is the turnover after the project is done, and then they get let go all the temporary people, and then they're back to where they were again. Like, it's just the same thing, and then they hit crunch again.
I mean, unionization could lead to the cost of games going up, which is something that has not happened at all.
Very long time, yeah.
Like...
I mean, I think I'm a minority on this, but I'll pay a little more for a video game. It means that people making it don't have to live like monsters.
No, I agree 1,000%.
Like
1,000%. And I think the quality of the games will improve. Granted, there is that awkward... But look, development teams are bringing in new people all the time anyway. Because it's just like you said, they have a core group of however many people that are always going to be there, always going to be pitching new ideas, coming up with new projects. And then you have these floater guys who come in during crunch or whatever to help get you over the top, finish off all the art assets. Maybe you need someone to build tables or trees or whatever. People like that can come in and build a tree. You don't need to get them up to speed or whatever. It's like, yo, here's our art style. Here's our style guide. Start making trees. And they need to be in this style, but we need 80 different trees or what. You can bring people in.
You see, there was an
to
actual
do
talk at GDC about the best trees
No.
in games.
No.
Like, there's this woman who, like, she, like, actually studies trees and how you make trees. And there's that, I can't remember the name of it. It was a program that literally generates trees for a game. Like, you just make...
That's all it does.
It just generates trees. You put in parameters, it makes trees. You just put the trees everywhere. And, like, there's an article, I think it was on Kotaku. It was just, like, her opinion on, like, the best trees in games. And she said the best trees in games recently have been Assassin's Creed Origins and The Witcher 3.
Interesting. But like most things in life, there's two sides of the coin. There's there's no reason these people should be working these crazy hours at crunch. We need to do something about it. But then there's the other side. And look, this place that I worked, the union had been there for like 20 or 30 years. And so, yeah, maybe at first that union started out that way. But what happens is over time, you have union reps that become hard asses and go into these meetings. And they're like, well, if you don't like it, we're just going to strike. And then that puts the company in the position of like, well, we can't really miss our targets. In my case, it was like, well, what if we don't deliver all the carpet to Toyota for all its cars for this year or whatever? Then they just drop us and they never come back. And it's different for every business that you work in. Obviously, that doesn't relate to games all that well. But those are just things that happen once you unionize. You end up having these union reps that go in and argue it, and then you end up getting put in these weird positions where, you know, do you want to strike? You don't want to strike. If they do strike, then you have these people coming in that are scabs who are working when the union people are out, and then those people need work, but so they take the scab work, but then they get the scarlet letter and they can't get a job in the industry. It's not as simple as, hey, let's unionize. Now we don't work crunch anymore. There's a lot more elements that can come into it.
Yeah, but I also think that you could build a better system than what you were dealing with at the carpet
No, you're right.
manufacturing
You're
company.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Especially if the main goal of the unionization talk is stop making us work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
Which is fair. I mean, at this point, you're not talking so much about unionization so much as creating the weekend. You know,
no, you're right.
Like, or outlawing child labor, or so. Yeah. This is more like a revolution that happened around the time of, like, you know, industrialization. You know,
You're right.
like this is more of an Assassin's Creed syndicate thing,
Yeah.
and it has to happen because these people are being driven into early graves. Basically,
No, they absolutely are. Yeah.
It ruins families. It ruins health. People's weight fluctuates like in incredibly unhealthy ways because they have nothing else to eat, no time to do anything.
Yep.
Something's got to give, and it's.
Here's the thing. Maybe the ideal situation is the developers, if the publishers believe in their heart that, hey, these guys are going
Publishers don't have hearts.
Right.
You know that.
But listen, hear me out. If they truly believe that, hey, these guys are going to unionize, then maybe they start bending a little bit.
Right. Well, it's the ESRB thing. It's like.
Right.
It's like, we're going to threaten government regulation over your violent content unless you do it yourself.
Handle it, yeah.
And so I think, clearly previously in the game industry, it has never gotten so bad that, the industry basically said, no, screw it, regulate us, do that. So I feel like the union thing won't come to pass, at least immediately, because the publishers will crack.
Maybe the pressure is enough.
Yeah, but then who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's, Skinner says the teacher will crack any moment. Purple monkey dishwasher. Like, we don't know what's happening in the higher end, upper echelon halls of EA or Ubisoft or whatever.
How do you feel about the approach of the developers to kind of make GDC this flashpoint for it?
I mean, it seems
and
like
kind of go in and it'd be a little disruptive in panels.
Yeah, but like, you got to be heard.
Yeah.
Like, if you protest quietly, no one cares.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, the point is to be heard and be loud and be seen and make people talk about it and think about it. And if they hadn't done that and interrupted some panels, we wouldn't be talking about it now. It did its job.
Yeah, I wonder too because...
I mean, you can't... The idea that, like, protesters shouldn't be jerks is stupid.
Yeah.
Because, like...
How else does anyone
that's
pay
how
attention?
It's like, that's what protesting is.
I think the other problem, too, with unionizing in game development is that people generally are getting paid very, very well. So normally when you deal with a union, the people there are making like a touch above minimum wage. They're making a laborer's wage. So the minimum wage is $8 an hour. They're making $12 to $15 an hour.
You're comparing. It's an apples and oranges thing. I mean, I think the more relevant comparison is like to say like entertainment.
Yeah,
Guild, like the
like
Actors
SAG,
Guild and Writers Guild, Producers Guild, like that kind of thing. Where like you don't really run into the whole like, oh, everybody stop filming so much today. Like that's it's more of like everyone gets paid what they get paid. Residuals are what they are, and everyone's job is what their job is. That's the role of the guilds basically in TV and movie production. And you run into weird things where it's like a director gets fined if he picks a cable up and moves it out of the way because that's the gaffer's job or the grip's job.
That's what I was about to say. Like if you want to conflate that out to other forms of entertainment, there is messed up stuff that happens with the union in entertainment. I mean, a lot of people...
Especially when it gets down to lifting things.
Yeah.
Like it's like, because at a certain point you end up with the Teamsters and now you're back where you started.
Exactly. So even in entertainment, it gets a little slippery because there's a lot of people that won't hire union people in entertainment because what comes along with that is a hassle that's just not worth it a lot of times. Like you think about E3 even, like you can't go in there and set up anything. Like, if you want to run a power cable from the back of your PS4 to a TV,
there are people.
There are somebody there like, that's my job. I mean, it just...
Let me do it slowly.
Seriously, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, again, like, I totally get it. Like, where I worked is different from the games industry, but there are certain parts of unionization that extrapolates across
where you
every
work
industry.
Makes me want to pitch a sitcom to someone. Like
seriously. I think they've made them already. Like, there's got to be some sitcom.
Especially the episode where you find out that you're working there because you dropped out of college because you failed finals because your roommate got murdered.
Yeah.
Like that is on a very special episode of Shane's work.
Yeah. I'd rather just not relive that at all. But I think just the threat of them getting serious, and you're right, them going to GDC, and generally the games industry is kind of this like, I don't want to make any waves like industry because everyone's so happy to be in it that nobody wants to be the sore thumb that sticks out.
Yeah. But also because everybody's friends and like the friendships tend to cross the executive lines fairly often.
Yeah.
Like it's a very informal industry, like you can
but very polite,
very
respectful. And
well, I mean, you have your...
For the most part,
Yeah, we're about to start seeing some Me Too shit happening, I think.
Yeah.
Do you see the one guy, the guy who, what was it, Mid-Boss? The guy who ran Mid-Boss? The guy who organized Gamer X and did read-only memories and all those like really like diversity-driven things. I mean, nowhere is safe.
It's really
but I'm glad somebody said something.
But you're right. In this industry, where it is like that, where everyone's so genial to each other, and everyone's just like...
A world where like a programmer can just walk up to the president of the company and hang out at a party or whatever. It's like, it's just how it works.
But here's the thing, like, you can get blackballed in this industry too, though.
True.
And so for those people who went into those panels to kind of raise a ruckus, that took some guts. And I will definitely commend them for that, because in this industry, it's smaller than you think, like way smaller.
Oh, yeah.
Like the people who are watching this or subscribe to it, they really have no idea just how small the industry is. Like, we know, like, almost everybody in it. We don't know, like, every programmer who's developing every game, but we know all the producers of those games, and we know all the executives at every publisher, and we know the people who are running all the small indie studios, and that's just from being around. Like, it's not like you have to make a concerted effort to do it. It's much smaller than you think.
To the point that I've been in like lines and stuff for things at like E3 press conferences where I've looked around and realized that I don't know anyone around in eyeline, and I'm like, that's weird.
Something's going on.
It feels very weird.
Where's everybody? Everybody is someplace, and I need to be there.
Everyone's at the Buddha bar, and I didn't get the message. That's what happened.
Exactly. But I think this is a good first step. Like, you're absolutely right. Something has to be done. There's no reason that these very skilled, very talented people should be working this hard to get projects done. The project management needs to get better, and I think this is the type of thing that can motivate publishers to make a concerted effort to do that.
Maybe tie the unionization argument in with the loot box thing.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like the gambling regulations can have some union stuff like kind of piggybacked. They'll get loot boxes out of games real fast.
Funny, I don't think there was a loot box panel at GDC.
I thought there was. I thought there was a panel.
I would like to see that.
I thought there was a panel where they all... I heard about that. Maybe that was DICE?
I'm going to start digging, because Gama
I thought there was a
Sutra...
panel where a bunch of people were like the panel was basically like, hey, loot
no,
boxes
that was
are cool.
DICE. That
was that DICE?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But Gama Sutra, I believe, if it has the deal still, has the exclusive on all the panels at GDC. So I'll go and I'll start kind of parsing their site and see if they have anything up from it, because I would love to watch that. It would be fascinating to see these developers try to defend some of these policies.
It's very interesting when you talk to people who like work on a game that runs that way.
Yeah.
How quick the shields go up.
Yep.
And how quick the sort of, well, if they're going to do that, why shouldn't we be the ones to take them? It's just like...
where you start getting the whataboutisms. Well, what about this?
If someone's going to strip mine this side of the mountain, why shouldn't we get the diamonds? That's what you sound like to me when you say that. I'm not even someone who freaks out about loot box stuff. I don't think they're gambling. But I do think it's a predatory practice. And it's annoying because, it's, I did like...
I just get sick of hearing about it from everybody else. Everyone complains about it so much.
If you just sort of, not stop reading Jim Sterling's updates, it gets quieter.
Right. He is fixated on it, for sure.
But because he's vulnerable to it. He has the kind of personality that gets addicted to doing that. So it's a pet issue to him, and as it should be. That's a good reason to be annoyed by that.
Yeah.
But, I saw the thing with Warframe. Did you see the thing with Warframe where they had it was a randomizer for a pet, a little pet, and you could pay equivalent of 54 cents or something to basically you got a random fur pattern for it, and they put that in. And some guy spent $130 on it in a day because he wanted one specific fur pattern. And all the Digital Extremes guys went, "Oh my God, we put a slot machine in our game," and we didn't even realize it. So they took it out. They killed it. And so Digital Extremes is I know some people who have some horror stories about having worked at that Digital Extremes in the old days, but Digital Extremes seems like a pretty decent outfit.
Yeah.
These days. I don't know what the working conditions are like, but they seem to have their heart in the right place.
Yeah, they've certainly turned around Warframe.
Yeah, for sure. So I appreciate that they're like, "Oh my God, we put a bad thing in there, and we were making tons of money from it, but we're going to stop it because it's terrible."
Yeah.
So maybe just a little more of a conscience would be nice, but you can't inject a conscience into EA, because then what would it be?
The only thing that's going to make them change is fear.
Yeah, well, that certainly changed Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
I haven't logged in since they made the changes, but I've heard that it's at least a decent olive branch to some degree. But Need for Speed Payback's still broken.
Yeah.
Should be called Need for Speed Pay Us.
Maybe they sold so few of them, they're just like...
Well, exactly.
Nobody cares.
Need for Speed's integration was worse.
It was,
It prevented you from progressing in the game in a very real, tangible way. And no one cared because no one played it. Yeah. And it's not Star Wars. You know, that's you mess with Star Wars, you get the horns, basically. So that's going to be interesting to see how EA deals with this moving forward, and I would say the big test on that is going to be Anthem. Yeah.
It's going to be a big test across the board in a lot of ways, for sure. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game I wanted to talk about last week with Colin, but Colin had not played it because Colin basically just...
Xbox.
He refuses to play anything but PlayStation platforms.
That's weird.
Isn't that crazy?
I
couldn't live.
I know he's against taxes, but you don't have to get rid of everything with an X in it.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah. He, and I'll say this, he doesn't hide it or he doesn't try to make it a secret. He just says it. He's just like, I care about PlayStation, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, I couldn't talk about Sea of Thieves with him last week.
I care about video games.
Right, me too. That's all I care about. I don't care what platform they're on.
Granted, I would prefer to have fewer consoles, probably, in the end, but you got to do what you got to do.
But at least he is honest about it. But anyway, I couldn't talk about Sea of Thieves. I had it in the rundown. And then I sent it to him, and he's like, well, I haven't played Sea of Thieves. I was like, oh, that's right. You don't play anything but PlayStation. So I took it out.
You can just do what I do when I haven't played something. I just sort of comment.
Yeah. I hate that, though. I hate whenever, I've only played something, and I have to feel like I have to keep the whole conversation going on my own. It drives me bonkers. So I didn't want to do that again. So I knew you were going to play it, because I gave you a review code that they sent me. So I figured we just put it off until this week. So here we are. We've both played the final version of Sea of Thieves after... How much time did you spend on the beta?
I probably 10-ish hours.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. I played the beta a lot. I probably got close to 20
The beta
hours.
was right around the time medical problems were starting.
Right,
so
right.
I didn't have a lot of time to sit down and play multiplayer at the time.
But now we've both got the final version. It came, I would say, at an unfortunate time because I got it before I got Ni no Kuni and Far Cry. But not that much before. But the thing is that it was plenty of time before, because after I spent 2 days with Sea of Thieves...
Yeah. And that's even including like the day you couldn't get on.
Right, yeah. And after 2 days of the final version of Sea of Thieves, I have very little
Yeah, I had stopped playing Sea of Thieves by the time Kuni II came out.
Yeah.
In fact, I had gone back to... I played Dark Souls 2 again to fill the time between quitting Sea of Thieves and playing and Kuni II showing up.
Yeah.
I played the final version of okay, it ain't the final version, I'll tell you that much, because there better be some updates coming. But
well, they said they're going to support this game for 15 years or something like that.
Yeah, sure. And then when they're asked like what is the upcoming content, they're like, we want to surprise you. It's like, yeah, you said that about when someone asked you if the Kraken had a body.
Yeah.
And the Kraken it's just tentacles that stop 3 feet below the water.
Really? Is that
there's
true?
nothing there. There's nothing there.
Really?
It's sitting there. There's nothing under there. Yeah. If you dive in and look.
Wow. Have you been attacked by the Kraken?
No.
I haven't either.
But
after I saw a video of it, I was like, it's not worth playing it for like hours and hours for it to happen.
Maybe you'll get a rare upgrade. No, there's no upgrades. There's no items. There's no nothing.
Because remember, I was thinking that, you'd have to team up with people to fight the Kraken. But no, it just randomly happens, and then it's just you as your own crew who is responsible to kill it or not kill it.
Yeah, it's not like an end game boss thing. It's just like a thing.
That's what I thought the idea was going to be, but it's not.
Yeah, so I played it for about 10 hours again, the final version, and I just felt like I was done, and because it's incredibly shallow and very simplistic, and a lot of the things they did to make it more accessible make it boring to me, and I'm not necessarily saying they should change it because of that, but like the nail in the coffin for me, I think, was when I was with a couple of people that I'd found online. It wasn't people I know, it was just people I'd been matched with, and we were doing merchant guild quests or whatever, which usually means you got to go capture an animal in a box and then deliver them to some place. And the place we were having delivered was Galleon's Grave, which is pretty far north. And so we're sailing up into this north area. It's getting, the sky has changed a weird color. There's a storm coming, and like one of the guys was like, "Oh, I hope we're like ready to do. If we run into something, we can handle it." And like I was like, "Yeah, I agree." But then I was like, wait a minute, there's no upgrades to anything this game. We can never get better at fighting or shooting or anything, so like it's obviously going to be the same as the old place. It's just scary colors.
Yeah.
There's one enemy in the game, a skeleton.
One enemy in the whole game.
Sometimes they have guns, sometimes they have swords.
Unless you count the Kraken.
Yeah, or Kraken, or some people...
Sometimes they'll have a scarf, sometimes they'll have a hat.
Yeah, some people count the snakes.
Yeah.
Who just sit there and hiss at you, and they hurt you if you step on them.
Yeah, they'll poison you.
But there's nothing here. Like, there's like little bits of it that are fun, but there's a point at which you realize everything you're just gathering money to buy cosmetic stuff that's overpriced anyway that no one cares about. Anyway, like there's no treadmill. It's just to screw around and play with your friends on the ship. And like the moment-to-moment ship stuff is pretty fun, but none of that gets you anything either. And the ship sinks. Okay, well
here's a perfect example of why I don't like to play it. So if you watch this clip, I'm piloting the ship. Some guy gets pissed off that he can't pilot it. He comes up and starts slashing me with his sword. So I'm like,
what that was?
So I'm like, screw it. I don't want to deal with your dumb ass. I move away from the wheel. He does not take the wheel, and then the boat crashes into a rock. Like, here's the thing. For me personally, I cannot stand playing this with other people. On the beta, it was okay. I think a lot of people were just happy to be in the beta, playing the game early. Everyone was very respectful. Everyone was just learning the game. Now that this game is out in the wild, every single person I'm on a boat with is just a complete jerk. Like, they're like a boss.
We tried to play together, but like, we couldn't get on.
We couldn't get on. Like, they were having problems with parties and whatnot. But every person, they're like, there's the boss. There's the guy that thinks he knows. All right, everybody put the sails up. Put the sails up. Turn the sails. It's like, bro, we've all been playing this game. We know what to do. So you have like these micromanager bosses. And if you're like, he's like, put the sails up. Put the sails up. We're getting ready to land. I'm like, bro, you just drop the anchor. You don't have to put the frickin' sails up. You drop the anchor, the boat stop. I got so tired of these people on power trips who are like, oh, I'm the boss man. I'm the captain. I get to tell all you guys what to do. I was like, bro, that's not how this works. Like, it just grated on me. And then as I kept playing it, I realized that I had experienced all the content in the game already. I just said no thanks. I just didn't care anymore.
Mm-hmm. I think there's the bones of something good in here. The skeleton bones. Because the thing about this is, like, you play it and I can see all the different things you could do with what's here. They just didn't make any of that.
The first 10 hours, I think, are great. And I think a lot of people...
Until you see the strings.
Well, until you start to realize that that's all there is. There's a 10-hour loop, and once you've played it for 10 hours, that's all you're going to do. And I'm sure a ton of people are going to watch this or listen to this and be like, they're crazy. I've been playing this game and I love it. And I guarantee you they're at the 10 or whatever hour mark, and they haven't got to the point where they start to realize that there's no point in doing this anymore. You don't gain anything by continuing to play the game. And after a while, the entertainment and the novelty wears off, and I just was left with nothing but a bunch of assholes. I was on a boat with a bunch of assholes.
Although I will say, you also have just described exactly how I feel about multiplayer shooters.
Really? But you progress in those, and you level up, and you get new weapons, and you unlock new perks, and... Really?
No, to me that's not enough. For some people it is, but like that's also exactly what multiplayer shooters were before Call of Duty added the experience system. I mean, back in the 90s, that's what Quake was.
Well, that's why it evolved. I mean, that's why shooters became big again once Call of Duty started instituting all that stuff.
The hook becomes the progression.
Right.
And they seem to be intentionally avoiding that in this game, outside of cosmetic stuff. But like, I don't like if you could actually upgrade your guns and upgrade kind of like, become a more deadly and efficient ship or pilot, like I would still be playing it.
Yeah.
Like that would be a carrot on a stick that I would be interested in. But like, just a fancier coat that does nothing is not...
It's kind of a catch-22, though, right?
Because it takes so long to get anything done.
Yeah.
And then there's a chance of getting griefed by people.
Getting ganked when you got to turn it all in. But then
I don't even care, because it's just like, I just go out and get more chests, because it's all just money. You don't even get to see the chests open.
Exactly. That was what I was saying, is like, who cares if they take your money? It doesn't matter.
Get more.
Because I don't really care about the cosmetics.
Right.
It's like, if I kept... My dude right now is naked with a shirt. I do not care what he looks like or any of that crap.
You can't really see him.
He has the crappiest shovel. He has the crappiest gun. I get the free gun out of the galley. Like,
well, then you don't even really get to like get real ownership, because you have to randomly generate the characters until you get one that you like, and you don't get to pick what they look like. It's very weird.
I wholeheartedly recommend just getting Xbox Game Pass for a month for $10. Play the crap out of this game for a month.
That feels like what this was made for.
It does kind of.
Like, the idea that they're charging $60 for this is nuts.
It really is nuts.
Like, $10 for a Game Pass where you get to play this for free in addition to the other stuff you get, that's pretty good. I'm into it. Also, I should note, game is gorgeous.
It is.
Like, the best parts of this game for me, other than a couple of the fights where I was like, oh, this is how the cannon works, and this, like that, a lot of that's cool just because I like ship stuff. But like, the best parts of the game, just like in addition to that, were just standing up in the front of the ship and watching the water and watching everything go by. And also the other thing I enjoyed was when someone else would drive and I would sit down at the map and tell them where they were going.
Yeah.
It's like, ease a little more southwest.
You're like a navigator.
Like navigating that was fun. But that was fun for about like an hour.
The problem is, here's the thing. Playing this game with your friends,
and then you get to the island, and it's about the size of this room.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there except what was put there by the voyage. There's nothing to explore, really.
Yeah.
Killing skeletons doesn't get you anything. Like, it's just weird.
Playing this game with your friends is fun.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But the problem is I have like 400 people on my friends list, and I still can't get 4 people together to play a freaking game of this.
Well, I had a couple people I was playing with that I vaguely know from online, and I can't get them to sign on again. Like, no one wants to play it anymore.
But then you do play, like, even if you play with people on your friends list that you don't really know in real life, they're still jerks. Like, they still don't want to do certain parts of the game that need to be done. Some people don't want to bail out the boat when the boat is sinking.
Well, they weren't jerks, people I played with, but like, I didn't do a lot of public stuff.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, it's just no one, people are like, I got other things to do. I got better games to play. Because the thing is like, it's like, yeah, you could do this, or you could play a co-op game where you have fun playing with your friends, and the game's also fun.
Yeah.
Which I don't think, a lot of this isn't fun after you kind of get over the novelty of it.
It's just, it's just paper thin in content and motivation. I just
And
have no motivation to play it.
And I feel like in like a year, maybe they could make this into something that's really worth
It is possible that in 2 years from now, like they put out a trailer, they're like, "Hey, look at what we've done in 24 months," and I'm like, "Oh wow!"
Yeah, like my Xbox One 2 comment was not totally flippant. It was just like, about that time from now, I feel like they might have built this into something that's really good. But I have no idea what they spent 4 whatever years working on here, other than like the visuals.
I was also shocked to find out that in most cases there are only 6 ships per server.
Yeah, it's not an MMO.
There's a maximum number of 99 boats can be on a server, but Microsoft has basically called it down to like 6.
Probably because of the technical problems.
Well, probably because I noticed in the beta, I saw ships all the time. And I literally played the final version of this for like 4 hours and never saw another ship. And that is the funnest part of the game. Either somebody else attacking you or you attacking them. I don't feel like it's balanced very well. It's far too easy for a little dinky boat to just come and smash a big boat and take it down. But that is the most...
Especially if the other people playing with you don't bail the damn ship out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that is the most exciting part of the game, and it appears that in the final version, for whatever reason, that's been nerfed, and there's not as much ship-to-ship confrontation anymore. So
it's true. I have rarely seen ships.
I mean, look, this is a socially driven game. It's not about completing tasks or getting rewarded for tasks or leveling up or progressing. It's about having fun with the people there. But they haven't given you the tools to do it. Like,
well, it feels like a lobby.
Yeah, you can't, like, for instance, how do you signal to another ship that you're friendly and you don't want to fight?
The thing I saw was people were pointing their cannons straight up.
They can do that. Like, they can wave or whatever. But there should be, like, something. Should be able to run up a flag.
Right. Well,
a white flag that says, hey, there was supposed to be
around. Flag signals in the game, but they're not in there yet.
Really?
Yeah.
How hard was that to put in the game?
Man, they don't even have parrots in yet.
Right. But I do wonder what Rare was doing this entire time. Like,
according to the guy who worked on the game, who posted on Reddit about it, he worked on it for like a year. He said they never believed the various teams that were forced to play test it and said like it's really shallow and you need to have more of a game in here. And they took like 2 years to build the boat model.
Oh my god!
And they kept building it and building it back up and doing this and changing this and doing that. And it's like, on one hand, it makes sense that like, yeah, you need to make sure that the place the players are spending like 90% of their time is good and works well. But at the same time, it's like it's a boat. I mean,
it sounds like nothing's changed at Rare. Well, also, even back when Nintendo owned Rare.
Well, also they could never figure out, I guess, like how the anchor worked, where people were trying to point out like there is no anchor. Like you drop the anchor, right? But there's no physical
there isn't an anchor
on the boat. Like it doesn't come out of anywhere. So like there's no like. And so like originally like you're gonna have to be able to get custom anchors for the boat, but you'll notice that's gone because there is no anchor that literally drops.
Why?
Because I never figured it out.
So simple.
I don't know. Man, I know people keep comparing this to No Man's Sky in terms of like, oh, it's just not done at launch, and like, man, No Man's Sky had more to do in it.
Oh yeah,
than this game
No Man's Sky to me was far more interesting.
And like people have countered that with saying, I'm seeing No Man's Sea has been what people have been calling it. And people say, oh, well, multiplayer works. And well, yeah, because like, the point
That's all it is.
The point is not like to compare multiplayer. The point is like, what did they say this was going to be? What did you expect it to be? And what is it?
Imagine how dreadful this game would be if you just played by yourself.
The disconnect between those three things was a problem with No Man's Sky, and it's a problem with this game. And there are still going to be people who love this game for what it is, even though what it isn't very impressive. Just like I love No Man's Sky for what it was, even though most people didn't because it wasn't very impressive.
Hey, I really enjoyed the first 10 hours of this game. Like, I had a blast with it when I first started playing it, but it wore thin very, very quickly.
It's a really...
And there's nothing...
It's a really good demo for something more ambitious.
There's sometimes, like, when you play a game, you're like, oh, there's not much to this. But there's that thing on the horizon that you can always look to and be like, but... if I keep playing it, I can get to that. And there's none of that in this game.
Also, wasn't there 5 people on that boat just now?
Yeah, I'm sure they've adjusted all that stuff along the way. And
there's none of this stuff kind of... I mean, it's just, there's no... Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
like
making people walk the plank.
Walk the plank?
Yeah.
Why would you ever do that?
Yeah, this is the debut trailer, by the way. So this was the original vision.
The idea, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't recommend anybody buy it. Like, best case scenario, $10.
Yeah, play it in out of
Xbox
curiosity
Game
on
Pass.
Xbox Game Pass, it would be my recommendation of that. And log back in, and when the next update, do the No Man's Sky thing. When they make a big update, try it out again and see how
jump
it
back
is.
in. Yeah.
Because look, you go back to No Man's Sky today, and you wouldn't recognize it compared to what it launched as. And hopefully, Sea of Thieves will be the same way.
I mean, it seems to have sold pretty well.
Sold fine, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so I mean,
Number one
hopefully
in the UK,
hopefully
and that's not even including digital. So
Right.
It must have been doing all right.
Hopefully that ensures that Microsoft isn't going to have a short leash
Microsoft's
with
got to
it.
stick with something for once. I mean, you cancel Scalebound.
It's not like it has anything else to stick with.
What else you got?
It's nothing else.
Like, this is a good kind of a multiplayer kind of thing that can keep people playing a long time. You give them a reason to play. Like, you make this thing work. Get somewhere with it.
Like right now,
what else is Rare doing?
Microsoft should be doing what Bluehole did with PUBG. Once it realized, oh my God, this is a thing, it just started pouring resources into it to give people what they wanted and to get it up to where people expected it to be. Microsoft should be doing that with this right now.
Yeah.
Because you wait another month for like a patch or something that adds content to it, it's going to be too late.
Right.
Because
also, at some point, because it's Rare, you have got to add the ability for me to put googly eyes in the front of the ship.
how awesome would that be?
How is that not in the game from day one?
Or on anything you want.
Just googly eyes on everything.
Yep. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about... we can't really call it Visceral Star Wars game anymore, can we?
Well, no, it's whatever they moved it to.
EA Vancouver
or whatever?
Yeah. So what started as Visceral Star Wars game has been moved to EA Vancouver. It was leaked this week that it is an online-focused shooter. Is it a shooter?
I don't think they've said that.
Yeah, they haven't said the genre yet. Open world online.
Open world online games as service. Probably like a Destiny thing.
It's a Destiny, Star Wars. Destiny with a... Well, I guess I can't just reskin it because that's Activision's game, but that's really what it's going to be.
Right.
It's going to be a Star Wars skinned Destiny.
It's a Destiny-like.
This, I mean... It's disheartening for me to hear this, but in all honesty, if they were smart, isn't this really what they should have been making from the beginning?
Yeah, the idea that this was not somehow in parallel development while Amy Hennig was making what was clearly going to be a narrative-driven game is weird.
It is weird, yeah.
Like, how did you not know this is something you wanted?
Right.
That's something I've wanted since I was like 12.
Like I thought maybe the motive game was going to be this, and then they let Amy and her team create the narrative-driven one.
Right.
But,
that would make sense. So then what the hell is Motive doing?
I don't know. Probably the same exact game.
Maybe. Yeah. And then, what's Respawn doing? I maintain Respawn might be making Battlefront 3.
It probably is. It's probably going to end up doing with Battlefront what Activision has done with Call of Duty. And have different teams working on the franchise so that
look,
get
to be
them out
honest,
more often.
I've had enough of DICE's take on it.
Yeah,
so
I've had my fill. I think most people, loot box controversy or not, have had their fill of
even without the loot box thing, like Battlefront 2 left me pretty cold in terms of just being the same old stuff with the same old ideas. And not in terms of being Battlefront, in terms of being DICE, in terms of being just, they do one thing and they do it pretty well, but it's time to move on.
Well, I think the other problem too is that at this point, the content has been exhausted. So what else is there in Star Wars canon to add to this thing? It's like you're at the point now where you need to rely on a new trilogy of movies to be released with new characters and ships to have anything to even add to it.
I think what they need to do is they need to make something. If Respawn is indeed making a take on Battlefront, make something that plays as well as Titanfall.
Please,
and you don't need to change anything about about in terms of the Star Wars juice you're hosing down in. Just give me an AT-AT battle that feels as good as playing Titanfall. That's all I want.
Give me a shooter that feels like a good shooter.
Yeah.
Because that was my big problem with Battlefront, is it feels like a shooter for casual players. It never felt like there would ever be an esports league for this game. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can play that game and be like, this will never be an esport. But
there's not enough depth to it.
But they should be making Star Wars games that could become an esport. It could be a huge esport.
Well, it could be. Yeah, you want something with some longevity, and it's not like a license precludes that because Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is still played at fighting game tournaments.
Absolutely, yeah.
You make a good game with some chops to it, it'll stick around forever.
You can also create a mode for the casual folks.
I might add, do you know what got an update this week on Steam? X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
Really?
They got updates for Mac compatibility and some bug fixes.
Wow. That's crazy.
So somewhere in the depths of Lucasfilm, someone's still working on those games. And we can't get a 30A Star Wars game out the door.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Are you okay with this? Are you excited? Because look, we both like Destiny.
I got years before I got to worry about this.
You think?
Yeah, this game is next gen.
Oh, you think it's next gen?
Maybe launch-ish for like PlayStation 5.
Wow.
We just started on it.
Well, I mean, they did say that they're going to try to use as much work as
Use some
as
assets, but you got to build that thing from the ground up. It's all online. That's a lot of work. You got to figure out how to put microtransactions in it without freaking out the entire gaming world again. And they're going to fail at that. So you should probably alpha test it.
I mean,
next time, listen.
The graphic is a Destiny far away.
Yeah,
it probably is a good 2 years, 3 years away still.
We might see Motive's game before we see this thing.
Oh, I think we will, absolutely.
They gotta put something out
I think
next
we'll
year.
see a teaser trailer for Motive's game at E3.
They gotta put something out next year. Preferably this year, but I think they're gonna miss it.
I don't think they'll release the game. I think we'll see some media for it at E3 at least.
There's gotta be something. Something.
I mean, if we don't see something...
This is the halfway point of your 10-year Star Wars license. You put 2 games out, and they're both the same game.
That is really bad. That is
not counting the mobile stuff. The mobile stuff's doing fine.
It is, yeah.
They integrated a lot of stuff with the mobile games into the relaunch, kind of the pseudo relaunch of like the microtransaction thing. So there's a lot of free stuff if you log into everything with your EA account and stuff.
Right.
Which is kind of how they're sort of trying to make a peace offering there. I haven't looked at it really.
But they're really getting to almost breach of contract territory.
Yeah, I can't imagine Lucasfilm is super happy that they've gotten 2 of them out, and the second one they had to have the head of Disney call them and say, knock it off.
Yeah.
It's...
Well, you also have the Solo movie coming up. You don't have any bumper media to help push it.
I've always felt that Hennig's game was going to tie into that somehow, because
it kind of looked like it.
She makes such a rogue-y, sort of Uncharted-y sort of... I mean, there's a lot of Han Solo and Nathan Drake.
Absolutely.
She seems to like that kind of thing. If that's what you're hiring, it feels like you'd hire her to sort of tell that kind of story in the Star Wars universe, and you already had sort of the framework of Lucasfilm being interested in telling that kind of story with 1313, which got canceled. I mean, that was an Uncharted game.
It was,
Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's such a fertile license, and EA just can't get their shit together on it. It's very weird and very frustrating to someone who loves Star Wars and would love to be playing stuff that matches up to some of the classic Star Wars stuff from the '90s, and it's just not there.
Yeah.
I mean, EA won't even remaster the good old games and let me play TIE Fighter in 1080p.
All I could figure is that Visceral's game must have been really bad. I mean, how could you eat all that money and time on development knowing you have this contract? And EA's not dumb. It knows if it has a bad video game on its hands.
Do they, though?
I mean, it's released some mediocre to bad games.
I mean, I don't want to be cynical about it, but it feels to me like the reason that Visceral's game probably got killed is more that it didn't do the games as a service thing properly.
It's possible.
That they were trying to make a single-player game, and EA doesn't want to put out single-player games, because they don't anymore.
Well, no one does, other than Bethesda.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of what it's come down to at this point.
Look how that goes for them.
I know.
Unless it's called Elder Scrolls or Fallout.
Or Fallout, yeah. It doesn't go particularly well.
I mean, that to me, I can't. I give much more credence to the idea that their business strategy is, milk the game for constant microtransactions for as long as you can, rather than like, oh, this game isn't good. We can't release this game. It's not good enough. It's like, no, I can't see EA saying that.
I mean, the big problem here...
It's Star Wars. It would sell anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem here is it's a game as a service, and EA has shown a horrible propensity to read its audience and knowing what it wants from that style of game. Mm-hmm. That's the big red flag to me.
Yeah. And like what else are you making right now?
What else is EA making besides Star Wars games?
Yeah, I mean, they got the
and
sports stuff.
That's it.
They continually make Need for Speed, even though no one seems to want that.
Yeah.
Need for Speed is like the cockroach of the EA world. It's like, like you make one slightly underperforming installment of any series from an EA series, it's gone.
Except
it's
Need for Speed.
Except Need for Speed will not go away.
It will die. It'll survive a nuclear
like
holocaust.
name me another franchise in the game industry that wouldn't have been killed by Need for Speed: The Run.
Yeah.
Like, how did that not end
I was
Need for
kind of
Speed
surprised
forever?
that EA made another Mirror's Edge.
Oh, I was too, yeah.
And EA does, for some reason, like A Way Out and Faye. It does do like these little side
A
projects
Way
here
Out,
and there.
there was some weird thing I saw with Way Out where it was like, it made a weird amount of sense because it actually didn't cost that much or something.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's really built by an indie studio, an indie developer, so
Yeah.
who knows how to keep costs down and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Knows how to liven up an award show.
Yeah. I guess that depends on your perspective. Define liven up.
Well, that would not be my... I'm not speaking from the perspective of Jeff Keighley.
No.
How about that? I'm speaking to someone who did not have to stand next to him and hold the microphone.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move along. We're going to talk next and last about Far Cry 5.
Hard to believe 5.
It is.
I was saying...
We're also forgetting
5.
Far Cry Primal was in there.
There's also Primal and there's Blood Dragon and yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, Blood Dragon was kind of like a DLC type experience.
Yeah, Blood Dragon was Primal. Primal and Blood Dragon are the same thing. They're full-fledged games, just one of them was only released digitally.
Yeah, was Blood Dragon as long as Primal, though?
Yes. Primal...
It seemed like it was shorter to me.
Blood Dragon was the Far Cry 3 map. It was the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess you're right, actually.
Far Cry Blood Dragon, I 100%ed that. Far Cry Blood Dragon took me like 30 hours.
Did it?
Yeah.
I never finised it, so I guess I wouldn't know how long it is.
I liked it. I mean, it was just crazy enough to be entertaining to me. It was, I didn't think it was great, but I liked it. I enjoyed the audacity of it. And unfortunately, the guy who made it just left Ubisoft.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But I ran into him at B4, if you remember.
Yeah.
When
the party before E3.
People used to gather at a bar called the Cat and the Fiddle in LA when everybody would get in the day before E3 started and everybody'd hang out at this big patio-style bar.
Might as well kick off the whole week with a hangover.
Yeah. And I ran in, another guy I knew at Ubisoft introduced me to him. I talked to him for a while and I basically asked him, like, how? Yeah. How did this? And he's like, I pitched him, he's like, basically they made it. They made it basically on the sly, and then he pitched it to Ubisoft, and they're like, "All right, maybe it'll work." He's like, "Okay, here it is," and they're like,
"Ship it,"
and they're like, "Fine, okay, finish it and do the thing." It was basically it was like he knew it was going to be amazing, and they just had to do it.
Yeah.
And
for the record, I am a Far Cry fan.
Yeah,
I have enjoyed pretty much all of them. The last one that came out, Primal, I did not like the first one very much. Yeah, I mean, I think the first one was very standard. It was rough around the edges. It was more of a Crytek demo. It hadn't found its form yet. Yeah, 2 is the one that sort of figured out it's open world, and you kind of have this. It's open world. There's a bunch of like hard asses you got to take down, including one big main villain. You have to find safe houses and upgrade everything. Yeah. You have to drive around all the time. Fire is very dangerous. Yeah. And drugs are involved. Yep. Those are basically. And those are the tenets that the series has survived on ever since. And thankfully, the Far Cry 2 is like one of the more compelling ones, I think. But it was hurt by the fact that guns could jam and break. Yeah. Which was annoying in the middle of a fight. They figured that out. Though. And also that you had malaria. Yeah. And periodically had to pop a pill to see straight. Right. Which is inconvenient in the middle of a fight. Yeah. Also, like if you go 10 feet from an outpost, everybody respawns. Yeah. So Far Cry 2 was kind of a thing that you need if you want to play Far Cry 2. You got to mod it on PC. Far Cry 3 sort of nailed the more. Some would call it more casual, but I would say it's more user-friendly. Yeah, I would say it's actually playable. Right. In a more broader sense, at least. So, look, I've been a fan all along. I love 3, love 4, love Primal. Here we are with 5. This game had a lot of controversy in its build-up to launch. Definitely some pretty intense religious undertones in the initial marketing. But I feel like the game kind of punts. Yeah. Yeah, Matt, I am wondering if this game was nerfed after some of the uproar from certain quadrants of society. I would be very interested in an anonymous series of interviews of people who worked on it. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think eventually that may come out because I wouldn't call it bait and switch. No, but it's satire without a point of view. Yeah.
And I feel like I'm waiting for it to say something about its subject matter, and I don't feel like it is. And I feel like there's no way you build something like this with this premise without having that point of view, and I feel like someone just took it out.
Yeah.
I feel like this is not a failure of writing. It is...
Well, I think it fails at that too, though.
Well, I mean, it's going through the Far Cry motions, and it's trying to make these things interesting, but like the logic of the cult doesn't make any sense.
The logic of this entire game makes no sense. The very first scene, you're flying in on a chopper, it's you, and you're a rookie, and it's you, the local sheriff who's been dealing with these people all along, helicopter pilot, and then is the other girl also a part of the sheriff's department? I can't remember.
What, the other deputy?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the other rookie.
Okay, but she's at the sheriff's department. It's you plus your FBI boss, or is it CIA?
No, you're both deputies.
It's a local police department?
Yeah, you are a local.
Oh.
You're some kind of deputy, unless you're a deputy marshal.
I think you're with the federal government, though.
The U.S. Marshal seems to be solo.
I thought he was with you.
No, I think you're supposed to be a local, because I think you're a rookie. You
never know, because you never see yourself.
The sheriff keeps... Well, you do see yourself. You design your character, but you never see yourself in the game.
Right.
But the sheriff keeps calling you rookie. The sheriff, they know who you are, so I think you're a rookie on the local police. And the U.S. Marshal is the guy who charges in with a warrant and gets everything screwed up.
Well, first of all, the whole setup is just completely absurd.
Well, yeah, you would never go in 4 people, 2 of them rookies, into a heavily armed cult compound with a warrant.
Hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
That are
holding guns. I mean, they're all standing around
on you. And then it's not even just that you wouldn't go in and do it. It's that if you are that dumb and you do go in and do it, the whole idea that you're on your own and the federal government is never going to come and help you is completely idiotic.
Well, a lot of it just doesn't... none
of it adds up.
There's no cell reception. Presumably they've taken all that down. They cut the phone lines. They cut everything.
You have a satellite phone. You're federal government.
Well, you don't even need that, because early on I went to an airfield and I helped a guy with a plane, and I'm like, wait, you have a plane? Why don't we just fly to Missoula and call somebody?
Get out of here.
Call the frickin' National Guard.
The whole premise
the idea
of
that
the
you have
game
to everybody has to do it on their own there doesn't make any sense. But the point is to just play Far Cry. The idea is to play Far Cry. That's why the premise usually works better when you're on some kind of island somewhere where you can't get out of it. Or what is in Far Cry 4, the conceit was that all you had were those little gyrocopters, and they could only go so high and they couldn't get over the mountains.
Right.
But now I'm flying like a P-51, and I'm pretty sure I can get out of town.
The whole game, it makes no sense. And so you're right. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, let's just play Far Cry.
Or even the boats. Like, you can take a speedboat down the river and get out of town. Like, there's nothing stopping you from leaving and getting better help.
And I think the game tries to say, oh, well, you've fallen in with the local resistance and you are trying to help them. It's like, you know what? The best way you can help the local resistance is to get the hell out of there and call the feds. Right. And have the feds come in with the National Guard and just wipe these yahoos out.
Well, later on, there are feds who show up and you do some missions with them, and they're like, oh, I got promoted, I'm not going to be here anymore. Sorry. So they know what's going on, just no one's coming in. No one's helping.
The whole thing is so absurd.
And it's just, you've got things where so the airfield mission, you're helping this guy who has a pregnant wife, and because they want to get his plane back so they can leave, so they can fly away, and then the pregnant wife convinces him, this is your home, and your grandfather built this house and run this airfield, and we need to defend our home, and even though this baby's due any moment now, and and they decide, we're going to stay, and you can use our plane wherever you want. I'm like, no, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense that anyone would want to do that. It's like, according to my stats, I have killed 1,200 people in this cult, and they're still coming. Most of the people in the 5-mile radius we're in are trying to kill you or brainwash you with drugs. And there's a point at which you just have to back away, let the army come in and clear the place, and then come back to your airfield.
Just let them carpet bomb
I feel like there's not a lot of business coming in right now.
No. I mean,
you just can't think about it too much. The point is
you really
drive around and stuff and blow stuff up.
But see, that's the thing, though, is that this game and its marketing, it wasn't sold that way.
Right.
It was sold as a game that will make you think and make you ponder. And this game does none of that. It's just, even the interaction with the cult is so shallow and stupid and banal. It's like,
I got to admit, like I'm usually think I like the stories in the Far Cry's well enough, but like I don't care. Like when the story cutscenes start up, like I just like okay, like just get on with it. I don't skip. I haven't gotten to the point where I skip them yet. I can't bring myself to do that quite yet. But like, and also like I don't like that because the way that there's 3 sections of the world, each run by a different herald, which is the
brothers or the sister.
The 2 brothers and I think the girl is like an adopted sibling. So like as you do things that kind of revolutionarily, resistance-wise, you fill up a little bar, and there's 3 levels of it in each area, and as you hit the level in each area, they send the herald sends a capture squad to get you, which you cannot avoid.
No,
like they just come in and get you.
They don't even get you. It just cuts to a cutscene.
Yeah, well, they shoot you if they hit you once. You
because they shoot you with the
drug. They shoot you like a trank drug thing, and you blur out, and then you wake up in
look at this, by the way,
torture scene. Oh yeah, I've had tons of weird stuff.
There are so many bugs in this game. So many bugs. Right now, there is a tractor trailer where my vehicle is, and I am running through it. Because the mission objective is to destroy that tractor trailer. Now, keep watching this. So it's completely invisible. You can't see it. It is actually there. So I'm damaging it, and then wait for it. There's this great moment where, because I turn around and I'm like, well, what the heck is going on? Dude.
I have a video I captured on my PS4 of a similar thing where a truck hit a cow.
Now look at this. I run this guy off the road.
A truck hit a cow, and the cow got
There's
stuck
nobody driving the car. Look, wait, I get out. There's nobody in it.
Well, he might have fallen out.
No, they did not fall out. There's nobody in the van. This game is just full of stuff like this.
There was a van. It was one of those vans driving along, and it hit a cow. And the cow, instead of hitting the cow, like the cow got stuck to the van, and the cow spun around really fast, like that shot with the truck blowing up. And the back of the van opened, and the civilians you're supposed to rescue flew 3 miles, like out of, just over the horizon.
I got out of a vehicle and flew straight up into the air, and then deployed my parachute, and it slammed me down to the ground and killed me. This mission right here, after you clear out this cult thing, you kill everybody, and then you take it over, typical Ubisoft fashion. Afterwards, she asks you to find like these 3 pieces of this thing. Dude, one of the pieces gets stuck underneath like a trailer, and then a guy gets in it and starts driving away. So I start chasing after him. I realize I can't keep up. He comes back. The thing is still stuck underneath the trailer, but it's like 20 feet down into the ground. So I throw like a remote explosive under the trailer, hoping I can blow the trailer up in the air and it'll be underneath. And when I do that, it blows the object further underneath the ground and attaches it to my character. So that as I walk around, the icon for the item is now my character. This all, by the way, happened like in a 30-minute span. All this footage was recorded like all right in a row.
I've found that like if I play this long enough, those kind of things happen more and more.
The longer I've played it, the more they've been happening. And like, my first like 5 or 7 hours, I had no bugs whatsoever. Now that I'm in like the 15-hour mark, now I'm getting them all the time.
But I'm talking about like continually being on, not just like playing it. I mean, like I've had to quit the game and start it again, and it was better.
Oh, got you.
Like as though like leaving it running too long.
Gotcha.
Causes more of this. Yes. But I've had the very first mission where you're trying to escape from the cult after everything goes wrong. I'm running away, and I ran into near a cabin, and there's a guy outside the cabin. So I snuck up and I stealth killed him, and I went to run into the cabin to see if there's anything to get before I left. And all of a sudden somebody sees me. I'm like, who the hell saw it? Look out, there's another guy. So I go run up and I quickly kill him that way. And then another guy see. I'm like, who is it? It turns out the same guy that I originally stealth killed is just respawning in the same spot I killed him over. And as soon as I get more than a foot away, he just pops up again.
Here it is. This is what I was talking about. So there's an object there. I already collected 2 of them. And this is the 3rd one that I need to collect. And look, it's just under the ground somewhere.
Yeah, that's where I'd reload the checkpoint.
And
it's
then
right down. Yeah, it looks like it should be with an explosion.
now watch, I blew it up. Did you see the item come to me right there?
Yep.
And now look, I walk around it and it's attached to me.
There's a lot of wonky stuff in this game. I liberated an outpost once that every single person in it was the same greasy, black-haired, like bearded white guy. Like it wasn't like just like everyone looked at it. It was like 20 of the same character model.
This game could do with a lot more character models in general.
Yeah.
They repeat way too much for a game that's this big and this long. But look, I'm still playing it.
Yeah, I'm like 15 hours in.
I'm still having fun with it here and there. It is frustrating, though, because, I mean, it's Far Cry. Just random stuff happens that can screw you so bad. There is this one mission that I have been trying to complete. I've literally spent like 3 hours straight trying to complete it. And it's this mission where you have to go and find these 2 tankers and then drive them back. Got the first tanker pretty quick.
Oh, back to Falls End? Yeah, yep. I did that yesterday.
Got the first tanker pretty quick, no problem. I've literally spent 3 or 4 hours trying to get that second tanker. Because it doesn't tell you where they are.
Yeah, they just randomly spawn.
So you just have to drive around and hope you see one. And then once you see one, trying to take it over without blowing it up is like impossible. Because if you shoot the guy in there, and if one bullet hits the tank, it gets on fire, and you have to like race to get it back into the town.
Like, just fix it.
Yeah, I just got the thing to fix the cars. So
well, the reason I had that perk is because the first tanker truck I found, I had to be in this long chase with the guy and trying to shoot him with a pistol like sideways. And when I finally ran him into a tree, and he climbed out, and I was able to kill him. And it wouldn't let me in the truck. It said you have to repair it. So I'm like, all right. Well, I had like 40 perk points because I got everything else already. So I got the repair tool and did that. And then I just wandered and did other things until I actually did like basically cancel a story mission because I saw another one of those trucks. I'm like, oh, need another one of those trucks.
I've done that. I've been doing other missions and I saw it and I was like, oh my god!
Yeah.
I just ignore whatever mission I'm on and I go over and end up blowing it up or it flies off the road or whatever.
It was interesting. So I have another friend who is playing this as well, and he has been complaining to me about how hard it is, like how he keeps dying, he can't get anything done. I haven't noticed it being that difficult.
That's the only mission I've had problems with. I've had just random weird stuff, Far Cry stuff happen where because all the elements, the fire will kill you a lot.
Yeah.
Like there was one scene that we showed earlier in that footage where the guy with the flamethrower throws flames on me. I spin around to run away. I run into her, and she catches on fire. And she goes, ah! And she just falls down on the ground. Like, I love that about Far Cry, that kind of stuff.
One of the things that annoys me about this is, like, because you have to talk to people to get missions and also to get intel. So
here it is, right here.
Like a random... So like a random civilian will have like an icon over their head.
Sam.
And a random civilian will have an icon over their head where you have to talk to them. They'll give you like a location of something to like another little side mission or whatever. So, but if someone comes along and like there's a hostile that shows up, like they will stop talking and like everyone will like go in like combat mode until like whatever, like the frickin' badger wandering by goes away.
Yeah.
And I've spent like 10 minutes standing there trying to get these guys to finish their dialogue so I can just get on with the next thing, and they won't do it. And the best one was, so the thing that I am the most interested in are the prepper stashes, because the prepper stashes have
perk, the best parts of the game.
They have perk magazines, so you get upgrades.
We should talk about the big changes.
And I'm going to finish what I'm saying here first because it's part of the emergent thing we're talking about. We're like. So I was trying this. So you'll see them with that icon over their head, and like those are the guys I talked to instantly. So I found a guy who had that. I went over and I talked to him. He's like da 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 da. Guys showed up before he could finish, and we had to have a firefight. And then I had to go find him again, and like at the end of the thing, and talk to him again. Da da da. And then another guy came along. We had a van came along. We had to liberate that. Da da da. Finally, he's almost done. Right as he's about to finish what he's going to say, a Wolverine comes in from nowhere and bites his balls off and kills him. Like he dies, and I can't get the thing from him anymore. And I complained to my friend, like, he's like, Far Cry. I'm like, emergent gameplay. I'm like, this sucks.
No,
like,
that stuff happens all the time, man. The fire is really a pain.
Yeah, the fire can spread out, and like, I love it. Like, even your allies are terrified of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the fire's spreading!
Yeah, you're right. They do act like that. But there are some changes for this game. So, perks are a big part of the game. And, like, the perks aren't just like, hey, my gun's more powerful or whatever. It does things like give you extra inventory. So Before, when you have to craft like a pouch to give you more inventory, now they're tied into this crate. The perk system is insane. Like, literally, there's, 5 categories and, 10...
Well, one category doesn't really count, because it's just your companions.
Right. But there's, 5 categories with, 10 different upgrades for each one of them. And the perk points, it seems completely random how you get them.
Well, you just complete challenges.
But
and
it doesn't seem like for every challenge you get a perk point, though.
You get perk points for every challenge.
Really?
Yeah.
Seemed like I didn't get them every time.
You get them every single time. That's what the challenges do. They give you perk points.
Interesting.
And I've done almost all the challenges at this point.
They're the best parts of the game, in my opinion. I think
it's weird.
They're little puzzles that you have to solve a lot of times.
The challenges?
Yeah, you're talking about the stash, like the hoarder stash or the prepper stash. Yeah, a lot of those are like those bunkers where you have to figure out how to turn off the water.
But that's not a challenge.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, the challenges are like this. The tab next to the perks, where let's kill 10 people with a shotgun. 10 kill.
See, I don't even try to do those.
That's where you get perks.
Those just happen organically, though. That's why I'm saying it seems random that when you get the perk points, because
you're not looking at the thing that tells you what they do.
I just killed a guy and all of a sudden I get a perk point.
Well, yeah, because you killed 10 people or whatever with that gun or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, well that explains it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even look at that. I just assume that stuff's going to happen organically. I wouldn't look at that and be like, oh, I'm going to get 10 headshots now. I just let that stuff just happen.
Well, some of it you're going to have to, I promise.
Oh, really?
Because some of it's I think it's 2 death from below kills and 4 death from above kills, and you don't get a lot of death from below opportunities in this game.
The prepper stash is what I was talking about.
Prepper stashes are that's the other source of perk points, is the magazines you find in the prepper stash.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah, they're fun. They're like little puzzles where a lot of times people will be like, well, we don't want to let people come and get our stuff, so we're going to flood our bunker or whatever.
Right.
And it's a little environmental puzzle you have to figure out on how to get the water up out of there so you can go down and get the stuff.
A couple of them have one of the ones I did that gave me a plane. So
yeah, they're worth doing for sure.
And I do enjoy the planes. I love planes in general.
Yeah, helicopters are great. They fly well. We were talking earlier about the different levels of alert. So for each area, there's 3 primary areas, and then there's 3 levels for each one. When you get to that final level of alert, that stuff gets intense. Because they start sending planes and helicopters at you.
Actually, that was So
finishing those last few missions in that area, starts to be a pain in the ass.
That was the damn plane. I was trying to get a story mission going, and the planes they kept sending to kill me in the area kept stopping the NPC from giving me the full mission dialogue, and I couldn't get it to start. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go spawn. I knew I had a truck with a machine gun in the back. I'm like, I bet I can take the plane down with that.
That's all I use is that truck with the machine gun.
So I spawn the plane. So I spawn that, and I get in, and he starts diving at me, and I shoot, and the plane stops and just goes down, and I get a trophy pops up, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that's for. So I looked at it. The trophy was for getting a headshot with a rifle or a sniper rifle or a normal rifle from more than 300 yards or something out. So I headshotted the guy with the mounted gun a mile out. And I'm just like, wow, imagine if I was trying to do that. It's crazy.
That's the only vehicle I use in the game, is the one with the gun mounted in the back.
I use
the one you get early on.
I use the fake-ass Mustang.
Oh, okay.
Mostly.
So let's talk about other stuff that's different. So you can play through the whole game cooperatively, the whole single-player campaign.
Which is fun.
It is fun. You can also, if you don't, you can take a companion with you. So a lot of people wondered, what's up with the dog? That's what the dog is. And you can get a bear, you can get a cougar, you can get characters from the campaign, primary characters from the campaign.
And they do different things. I have one character, like you said, you have the flamethrower woman. I have a woman who is a sniper, who's really good.
The black girl.
Yeah,
I have her too.
She's good, and then the pilot will airstrike for you. He'll circle around, and you can call in strafing runs and bombing runs, and he also will cover you from the damn plane guys.
You can also pick up anybody. You have to drop people off your team to pick them up. You only have 3 regular Joes essentially.
Oh yeah, you can pick up random civilians. And those guys actually, so the way those work is everybody's got 2 skills. But the random ones you pick up, you pick up,
you have to use them to get them.
Yeah, they have to get a certain number of kills to get. And I have one, and she's like a regular soldier, but her 2 skills are auto spots everyone when combat begins and lets me carry more ammo. And I'm like, you are with me forever.
The
Like,
dog is good for that too, though. The dog will basically...
The dog's good on spotting, but I prefer the cougar because the cougar's stealthy and doesn't break your undetected.
I don't have the cougar yet, so I
Cougar's
don't know
great.
what he does. But the dog, like, I found that I used him for a little while because he will just run out and suddenly you can see through all the trees and see where everybody is. That's a huge help. Yeah. And he will go and collect, like, money and stuff from dead bodies.
Yeah. He'll also take guns away from them and bring them to you.
No, you're right.
So that's fun.
But I think
all the companions are pretty good.
They do, and I think they work pretty well.
Yeah.
They're smart enough. Like, for instance, like when I use the same vehicle almost every time. It's like called the Hell something or other, but I drive, and then the AI person is on the turret in the back, and you just learn how to use it. Like that one cult stronghold there. I just pulled up and just backed into the driveway, and she's in the back with the gun, and she just kills like half of the people in like the first like 5 seconds you get there. So. They're smart enough so that they're not an annoyance.
Yeah.
But they are kind of immersion breaking in the same way The Last of Us was. Because they just run out. And like the people, the enemies are just like la-di-da. Like they just act like they don't
They do react to the cougar though.
Oh really?
If the cougar wanders out, they'll be like, oh, what the hell's a cougar doing? So I'm like, that's cool.
And there's all that cool stuff too still where you use animals. Like it's a little more contrived this time. It's like blatantly obvious. They're like, hey, here's this like compound with 80 dudes and here's a big ass bear cage right in the middle of it.
I do think it's I think it's weird that they combined the crafting with the perks a little bit. Like that, like so instead
the crafting is kind of pointless now. Like I craft like ammo mostly.
You craft like explosives and stuff, but like I kind of I'm conflicted because I don't really like shooting animals if I don't have to, but at the same time having to hunt animals to craft like your ammo bag sort of added another facet to things.
Now
like,
you just sell them for money.
Yeah, now it's just you get cash and like obviously hunting a certain number of each animal gets you perk points from the challenges.
Right.
So you use those to upgrade kind of the things you would upgrade. But I mean, look, man, I got so many perk points. I have over half the perks already, and I've got 42 perk points I need to spend because I don't have. I
guess working on those challenges pays off.
It does. It's fun. Like the treadmill is good. It feels like you're making progress. I spent a long time kind of. So one of the reasons I was focused on this for so long is because I wanted a plane. I wanted a fighter plane. I wanted one of the World War II fighters, and I finally got one. And I flew around. And I blew all the stuff up that I didn't want to waste my explosives on. And I landed, and I saved. And I turned the game off and went back to Kuni II. Like I was like, well, I did what I wanted to do, and I'll go back to it. I love Far Cry. I've played all 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and Primal to like 100% completion. I like them all.
I'm still having fun with the game.
Yeah, it's still fun to play.
But I will say I am pretty disappointed in the game.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in the story's lack of teeth.
I still love the parts of Far Cry 5 that are Far Cry. Mm-hmm. All the other stuff that I thought they were putting in it to make it maybe a little smarter, a little edgier, all fell flat.
Yeah, it doesn't feel any different in that regard from the previous two. Really.
No, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're taking over swaths of territory. Once you take over enough, you take on the next swath. Once you take it all, you take on the final boss, and you finish the game.
Well, I meant in terms of like the villains and the story. It's the same kind of like. One of them uses drugs, and one of them uses torture, and one of them just like kills people. It's like the same thing that we've already seen in the previous ones. And there's
it just hasn't ascended to be a better franchise with this, and I really thought it had a chance to do that.
It's totally all over the place. It feels like there were probably a lot of arguments about that aspect.
I honestly think that Ubisoft just got cold feet and just changed the game.
It could be that
as much as it could,
or maybe it was never going to be anything more than that, and the marketing department just saw, this is an angle, opening. And we can run with it. Yeah. I mean, that's possible too.
I guess I would say this
because it's so much along the lines of what Far Cry 3 and 4 were that if you hadn't been kind of primed by that marketing campaign, you wouldn't think anything weird about this.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is if there are some people out there who weren't a fan of how the game was marketed or thought maybe that the game was going to offend them or make them angry, you can go play it. Like, if for instance, if you're a Christian or a conservative who was like, oh, this game's taking shots at me and I'm not going to play it, you could totally play it. Like, if you thought the game was going to do that, and I thought the game was going to do that, it totally pulled all its punches. Like, I think that they neutered this game because they were afraid of the uproar that it would cause if they went full
It's
bore.
like I said, I don't feel like it has a point of view.
Nope.
Clearly, this premise could be used to say something or kind of like, thematically sort of explore some things, and I feel like they aren't doing that with because like the stuff that the herald, because each herald kind of has their fetish, sort of, one of them is like obsessed with yes, say yes, because, and it turns out that he's the one carving deadly sins on everybody because his thing is like, give in to your sin, embody the sin, come out the other side of it, and then you will display to the world that you are the sinner, but now you're forgiven, and that's amazing, kind of thing. Which he finally explains later in the game in that way, but early on, like, they've got like yes, like built up like the Hollywood sign in various places. At a certain point, I'm like, I guess this guy's just like the evil Daniel Bryan. Like, I don't know. But it's like you didn't need kind of the cult, kind of the crazy cult leader religion thing to really explore that idea. Like, and it feels like a kind of a retread of sort of the previous sadomasochistic characters in Far Cry.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like it was just sort of, it's just like, oh, it's weird how, like, it felt so daring in the marketing, and when you play it everybody just feels like a standard Far Cry character.
Yeah. Just
and
like the whole, like, backwoods redneck angle that it looked like it was taking. It doesn't really take that at all.
No.
Like,
at the very least,
you don't really interact with the bad guys very much.
No,
like
and at the very least, everybody you interact with is sort of the same. Like, there's no class system happening there, really, except for the fact that everybody kind of, people are getting brainwashed by this drug to believe this. It's never fully clear, like, why people are joining or why anybody started joining.
They really just kind of blame it on the drug.
Yeah, the drug is, there's no ideological thing happening here. It's just like crazy cult people are brainwashing people, which, okay, so crazy cult people are brainwashing innocent people into becoming crazy cult members that we then shoot in the head. Does not really feel like we're solving a problem.
No.
I mean, it's all an excuse to get all these characters out and all these, cannon fodder soldier guys and girls. Also, like, about half the people you're fighting are women.
Yeah.
And it feels like a cult like this would probably not give the women guns and military fatigues. In fact, they'd probably be lucky to give them shoes.
Right.
It just, like, if you're gonna pick this as your premise, like, follow it to its logical conclusion.
They don't go all the way in.
It's
very not even a half step, I would say.
No, it's a very progressive, revisionist millennialist cult. That's
a good way to put it. There is multiplayer. I honestly have not got to play it. Have you?
No, I played like arcade mode a little bit.
Yeah, we showed some footage of that there at the end.
Like, you get, like, people can make maps, and I played like a Stranger Things version of a map, and like
all the maps that have been created so far, in my opinion, are terrible.
They're all just little toys kind of thing sometimes.
I honestly don't see it. And look, I messed around with it for a little bit and tried to build a map, and after about 20 minutes, I was like, I give up.
It was my biggest problem with it is everything takes forever to load. Like, it takes so long to get into stuff.
Yeah, the loading is really for everything. Not even just this stuff, but like the single player too.
Yeah. But like, just like the thing that really prevents me from messing more with the arcade mode tends to be, well, I don't want to go, because like, you see the arcade posters you can use to activate it all over the place, but like, it just, like, I look at it and it's like, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to wait for all the load times and sometimes you load up a map and you don't like it. It's like a waste of your time.
I thought everyone I played, I thought was a waste of time, because everyone was just like me. They're like, oh, I got some stuff laid down. Do I really want to go through and like script all this stuff?
I filtered it to be the featured maps, which is the stuff Ubisoft. Right now, it's just the stuff Ubisoft themselves made, and there's some pretty good stuff in there. I'm also interested in the DLC. There's 3 DLC modules coming or whatever. There's a zombie one and a Vietnam one and a Mars one. And the Mars one I heard is supposed to be pretty darn good. So instead of selling Blood Dragon separately, it looks like they're just going to put the crazy stuff as part of the DLC Season Pass thing.
Yeah, the multiplayer I have not got a chance to play. I couldn't get any matches. There just weren't enough journalists playing multiplayer.
Yeah,
so
there was no
maybe tonight I'll jump in. But...
Yeah, I figure I'll be... Although, like, with other Far...
You can see here the building tools for the
As with other Far Cry games, if you're trying to get, like, achievements or trophies for multiplayer stuff, you should do it now, because eventually there will just be nobody playing.
Nope, you're right.
I decided to finish out my 1,000 out of 1,000 on Far Cry 4 last year or the year before, and I had a couple multiplayer things I hadn't gotten, and I had to sit in that lobby for, like, an hour until enough people got in to just... It was literally just play every mode. Like, that was the one I needed. So I just needed to wait until enough people randomly popped, and it loaded it up, and it popped up. That was it. All I needed was 5 seconds, basically. But I still had to sit there for an hour, like, reading a book
waiting
until someone came in. So do the multiplayer stuff first if you ever want to play it, because multiplayer dries up on Far Cry pretty fast.
It doesn't sound like it's going to have much staying power this time either.
So.
It just seems like an afterthought. So, Matt...
The co-op's fun.
So, Matt, who should buy this game?
Anyone who likes Far Cry but isn't sick to death of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you love Far Cry, you're going to love this game.
Yeah, it's Far Cry.
It
is more Far Cry, with all the good and bad that implies.
I don't even know that like most of the tweaks are for the better, to be honest. Like, they don't make it worse, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, I feel like the streamlining of the upgrades, I feel like it makes it a little more repetitive in a way. But then, like, I guess the addition of stuff like the prepper stashes gives me something else to do. So
you still have
balances
those.
Out
the thing about it, though, is that makes it worth playing is you still just have those moments that only can be supplied by a Far Cry game. Just these random, like you said, like this crazy conversation. Here comes a badger, or here comes a cougar out of the wood. Like you're in a tangle with this guy, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have one. He can hit me one more time, and I'm dead. And here comes wildlife, just out of the woods, just tears the guy a new one and kills him. You're like, hallelujah, like. That stuff does happen pretty consistently, just like other Far Cry games. There are those magic moments that make it worth playing. But I am really disappointed in the game ultimately. Maybe I just had set my sights too high or expected too much out of the story. But based upon playing all the other Far Cry games, my expectations for the story weren't that great. But the story is really bad.
It feels very disjointed, and like I don't think the individual like character writing is all that bad, but like. And also
there's also typos galore.
Yeah,
and
also the item descriptions are actually very funny.
They are. Yeah.
Read the descriptions of all the items in the inventory.
Oregano goes great in brownies.
Yeah, that's also weird. It's like why don't they call weed? They call weed oregano in this, and it's like really that's where you decided to edit yourself. Like that's where you wussed out was pot.
Yeah.
Like really?
Calling it oregano.
That's so weird. Like everything, like you're just murdering people in the face constantly and like running over. It's like also there's no children in this town apparently.
No,
like no.
I thought I saw like a baby in one of the trailers or something, but I guess not. I thought I had seen.
There's the pregnant wife thing. I think there's a baby delivery thing later. She has the baby later in the story or something. But like, no, there's no children anywhere. They got those guys. The kids got out apparently. In fact, I can't recall seeing a school anywhere.
No. Yeah, the deeper you dive into the prose, the worse it gets. I mean,
yeah, you should probably
just take it at face value and don't take it seriously.
Keep it at far-flung, exotic, like fictional locations.
Here's the thing: if I had just kind of went into playing this game thinking this is just another Far Cry, I probably would have enjoyed. Maybe not enjoyed it. It's the wrong word. I would have been okay with the story, but the way that they marketed this as this ultra serious, hardcore trip behind this underground cult that with all these religious, like the religious stuff is like almost null and void in this. Like other than, and I will say this, some of the songs that they wrote for this are really, really good.
Yeah,
like
the music's actually really good in it.
Like some of those crazy like church like hymns that are in this game.
But then you listen to what they're singing.
Oh my god!
Because they've got like that radio station that all the cult members have in their cars. Like they did a really good job with those.
Those songs, man, like they're also like really catchy.
They're very the menus, like when you go to the menu, they have a version of one of them that plays kind of this sauce.
Yeah,
I was humming that in the shower today.
But that shows you like that's how those songs work. Like they're really catchy and they get people to sing, and they're kind of like they brainwash people.
And I was sitting there thinking, I can't remember a single piece of music from any of the Marvel movies, but I'm humming the Far Cry hymn in the shower without any prompting.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the radio station stuff, those songs, those religious songs that they play are really,
There's some
really
good license tracks in there, too.
Yeah,
like they did a good job on the music.
Yeah.
Really good job on the music. I don't think maybe I wasn't as immersed in the marketing stuff as you were, just because by nature of Sifted, like you see all of that and I just sort of like gloss over it.
Right.
So like it didn't bother me that much, because like, I think half of me expected them to punt on that in the end. Like it just felt like it was a daring marketing strategy that was just not going to pay off in the final game. And but I just wish like there isn't anyone in this game that captures my imagination the way Voss did in 3 or the way Pagan Min did in 4. To the point that like I have trouble telling the difference between the three dudes in the cult, like, because there's the father is Joseph, and then there's Jacob, and there's John. And if you put outside of Joseph's amber sunglasses, if you put those three character models in front of me, I might not be able to tell you which one's which. Like, it's real generic.
Well, here's the crazy thing too, is that like those guys, and this is one angle where they do kind of go there. A lot of like the kind of uber modern churches these days have preachers that look like those guys.
They're I realize they come from
they're
something.
like hipsters with tattoos and long beards, and they're like the hot thing now.
Yeah, I know they didn't come from nowhere, but it's like, give me some, I don't know, change the hair or something. Like, they've all got the same hair, the same beard, and the tattoos going on. Like, and I can tell which one's the leader because, you know, he's presented differently and he's got the glasses on. Also, I don't think we met. This game's real damn pretty. I think it looks real good.
I think it looks good from far away, but I think everything close up.
Maybe it's
pretty
the
bad.
HDR.
It could be
because it looks real. I'm constantly catching myself going like, "Damn, that looks good."
See, I actually was the opposite. I did not think the game looked very good.
In fact, early on, when you're at the very beginning, you have to lead Joseph out to the helicopter, like, and he's like you've got him in cuffs, and he's sort of like right in front of you. And I remember walking, and I said to my girlfriend, I'm like, "Look at how you can look through his glasses from this angle and see the stuff through it, like it's shaded that way and slightly like distorted from the." I'm like, we're like 2 gens out from when those glasses would have been part of his face texture.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it's just like it was a little moment of like, wow, look at that. Like, that's really cool.
I honestly, I'm playing on a base PS4. I don't think it looks that great.
I think
if you look at like a vista from a distance, it looks amazing. But the closer you get to stuff, the worse it looks. Like, there's no like fur shading in the game. Like, they're just like these textures that are slapped on the animals, and like, I don't know. I was not impressed with the graphics.
I think it looks real good.
The explosions I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah,
but
I think it looks real good. It might be an HDR 4K thing because it does.
I'm assuming that makes quite a difference. Yeah.
But I've been enjoying that. I mean, it's not like, you know, the best thing I've seen all year and visually, but like, I'm pretty happy with it visually.
It's not ugly.
No.
I'll say that. But it doesn't seem like a
it feels like
next level.
I think it feels like a next gen leap from 4, for sure.
I haven't played it from Primal.
Yeah.
Really?
The fur shading is not great in this, but it's way better than Primal's.
I don't think there is any fur shading in this.
It's not. I don't know what you're calling it, but like whatever they were using for the fur of the animals in Primal did not look as good as what they have on this.
Yeah.
And maybe they just stepped it back and stopped trying to put the little tufts of things on it because that just looks like
they can watch gameplay and they can figure out what they think about it. But yeah, that's it. That's Far Cry 5. Maybe we come back and talk about it again if I play some multiplayer, but I'm guessing probably
I can't imagine
not.
a multiplayer is going to be worth
discussing again.
I mean, how many people knew there was
multiplayer
until you said it?
Yeah. And I don't see myself touching the arcade stuff too much either, to be honest. Like, maybe if something goes viral, or like, oh my god, this crazy thing somebody created, I'll check it out. But otherwise, I don't think
I would mess with that and browse around it more if the load times were faster. If it was easier to just get into it.
Hopefully, those get improved.
Maybe, yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm surprised you got the PS4 version and not Xbox One.
Well, the PS4 version is what was available.
Ah, got you. There you go. All right, so it's time for our trailer of the week, and there was a game that we mentioned earlier that came out and actually has scored pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised because after Days Gone was pushed out, I had a hole in my draft order that was filled by this game, and I never dreamed this game would score this high. It's sitting at like an 81 or something on Metacritic right now, A Way Out.
Which is pretty crazy because a lot of the reviews are basically like, this game sucks except for the co-op part.
Stuff, yeah.
Like, basically all the reviews
I'll take it.
Tons of the reviews are, same with like Far Cry, where like, Far Cry's on my team. Yeah. And Sea of Thieves also on my team. Sea of Thieves already underperformed, and like Far Cry's hovering around that 81 range right now. And I'm like, because so like you're seeing all these reviews for Far Cry, like, story's terrible, this is awful, this is ridiculous, this is terrible, 8.9. You know, it's just like, okay, like, I'll take it because you're on my team.
The bad,
But like, The Way Out has a lot of reviews where it's just like, the story is embarrassing, everything's terrible, the presentation is awful, but it's so much fun to play co-op. It's like, okay, sure, like, whatever.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But neither Matt nor I have had a chance to play this game yet, so we didn't talk about it on the show.
And I do not intend to.
Yeah, so. I do want to play it, but we didn't want to show it.
Give me an extra review code, I'll play it.
Yeah, we did want to show it a little bit of love because it's scoring pretty well. And here it is, the launch trailer for A Way Out.
See that tower? Yeah. That's where we're heading. I was convicted for the murder of my own brother. I'm going to set things right. For me and for my family. Did you hear about the weather? I did. It's our window. We'll leave tonight. Here we go! Hold on right there! Everybody stay calm. Grab my head!
Please send an ambulance.
Start talking! Stop it, man! Let's go! I'll tell you! Which one do I pull? Relax, Leo. This one!
There you go, Co-op, the name of the game. Pretty much the whole name of that game.
A Way Op.
Yeah, I'm glad it has an alternate. I had a feeling that I remember I said during draft, like, it's something different and unique. The journalists are going to cling to it and give it up, maybe a higher score than it deserved, and that appears to be the case. I haven't played it yet, though. So I
really feel like Way Out and Far Cry 5 are getting not necessarily scores higher than they deserve, but scores higher than the text of their reviews indicate.
Yeah, happens sometimes.
While Ni no Kuni 2 is getting the opposite.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're right.
Like, I feel like they're like Ni no Kuni 2 is getting reviews. It's like, this is a magical journey of wonder and excitement. 7.5.
Yeah, no, you're right. I definitely picked up on that with Ni no Kuni. I don't know why. As always, this is your time to get your questions into the chat. Go at Sifted Games. It'll help us pluck the questions out from all the rest of the comments. Before we get into questions, don't forget, subscribe to our channel via Twitch Prime. Give us $2.50. Easy breezy.
Shane wants his $2.
I want my $2. What movie was that from?
That is
Better Off Dead. Yeah, that was great. All right, let's see what we got
the
here.
Sifted Paper Boy wants his money.
From the Legacy, which do you think Sony and Microsoft will partner up with NVIDIA or AMD for next gen? BioShock 1 and Infinite did the cult/society storylines better. I wish we would get another game.
Well, fun fact, the guy who was the lead writer on Far Cry 5 is the same guy who wrote BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
So I feel like Irrational had...
Maybe he blew his load on Infinite.
To me, Infinite also suffers from having a ton of that style content cut out just to get it out the door.
Yeah, you're right.
But to me, that indicates that he does have the chops to write that story, but someone didn't let him.
Yeah, or he did, and they did some cutting.
I think that's what that was, yeah.
Yeah, to keep the controversy to a minimum and keep sales from suffering from controversy. I think NVIDIA is going to make everything for forever.
Yeah, especially with the ray tracing advances. I mean, yeah.
I just think it's written in stone. And I don't root for NVIDIA by any way, shape, or form. It's just...
No, I've had both. Well, actually, I kind of root for NVIDIA just because I had AMD in my last PC, and those drivers are garbage. And I don't know how they are now. Like, that stuff seems to switch back and forth constantly.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes AMD is the best thing, sometimes NVIDIA is the best thing. But, like, I've had overall a better experience with NVIDIA.
I think what's important really for console manufacturers is being able to ramp up production. Mm-hmm. I think that is more important than anything, that a graphics card producer can be malleable and say, okay, well, things are going slow. And oh my gosh, things are going gangbusters. Look what it did with Switch. And granted, those are old chips that maybe they had some lying
on a shelf somewhere, I think.
Maybe. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, when Nintendo's Switch became a hit, NVIDIA was there.
They were
chips.
Able to scale up.
They were able to scale up just like that. And I think I think both Microsoft and Sony will look at that. Because, I don't know if I can remember a console that did that, where it just skyrocketed and there was enough supply to satisfy demand. I just was at Target Sunday night, and there are Switches on store shelves there.
Well, partly that is because, again, they're slowing down. I said they would, and they're going to, because there's nothing there. But I think they got a Switch into the hands of most of the people who wanted a Switch by Christmas last year.
Which is impressive.
That is not something you could say about something like the Wii.
Nope.
Really.
Absolutely.
Granted, it helps they had the run-up from March, but NVIDIA, it feels like NVIDIA delivered on that. and that they had to be part of that pipeline, I would think. So, yeah.
Plus, NVIDIA's tech is just...
The tech is
all
there.
The publishers and developers are on board with them.
And Epic's on board with... I mean, it's just the pipeline is there.
The other important thing, too, is middleware. So, Unreal Engine. Like, which graphics card are they coding to first is going to be NVIDIA's card. So, I just think that AMD is fighting an uphill battle. Although I always root for the underdog, I just don't know if it's feasible.
I mean, you never know.
Let's see. Vox91. What do you think has been the cause of EA's problems with the Star Wars license? My guess is mandating their studios use Frostbite 3 when some of their studios have more experience with other game engines, Unreal and Havoc.
I think that's definitely part of it. But I still believe, with no real corroborating evidence, that the thing that ended up sinking the Visceral game was EA's wanting to move to that games as a service business model and not seeing a way to cram the Visceral game into that box.
Yeah, I'm really starting to think that maybe the game was just bad.
I just don't think so. I don't think that is how.
I don't want to believe that.
No, I don't think that's how EA does their jobs. EA will release a game that isn't very good, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and even if it's a risk, like
that's why I think it was bad. I think the project was flying off the rails.
I just don't believe it. I think it's their games as a service strategy. Like that wasn't part of that game. Amy Hennig was making a single player game, just like Visceral has always made the Dead Space stuff. And EA is just not interested in that. That's not what they want to deliver to their shareholders. They want a constant revenue stream that they don't have to release yearly.
I mean, it's smart if you're the shareholder or you're the business.
Yeah, but that's also why I say, because that is such a giant focus of EA's business strategy, they don't give a shit whether the game's good or not. If they did, they wouldn't have put out Need for Speed Payback. Oh, yeah. As long as those Need for Speed games are coming out, you can't convince me that they canceled anything because it was bad.
Let's see.
But I think, yes, Mass Effect Andromeda and all that has proven that forcing the developers to cram their stuff into Frostbite 3 is not a good choice.
Oh, here we go. Here's the person I was talking about, who's a Sifid user who was going to go to GDC, and he's making an indie game. And here he is, Super Cordon Bleu. I was at GDC, and indies were a huge focus, with Microsoft seemingly leading the pack with ID at Xbox. They were advertised everywhere. I saw no trace of Nintendo. With their strong indie presence, do you think that they missed opportunity to really show how much they are behind indies? Well, I think you're looking at it from the perspective of an upstart indie developer. And maybe you want to make games for Switch. And you go there, you don't know anybody, you're looking at signage, you're trying to figure out how can I find the people at Nintendo so I can talk to them about getting my game on their platform. I could see from that perspective where you might be disappointed. But when you kind of get in the machinations of the publishers, and maybe once you finally do make that contact, I think you'll find that there are people inside Nintendo, just like there are people at ID at Xbox. You just kind of got to break through that seal.
I feel like Nintendo's got kind of more of a "don't call us, we'll call you" thing going on
Maybe.
there still.
Yeah.
Like you got to kind of produce some results before Nintendo takes notice of you. So I don't feel like Nintendo's really searching out new indie talent. They're looking for stuff that's promising, that's already there.
That's a good point, because Nintendo also doesn't have like kind of an incubator program.
Right, which is more like ID at Xbox is.
ID at Xbox has early access.
Right.
You don't have that on Switch. You don't have that on PS4 either. You have it on PC and you have it on Xbox. So I could see why you probably think they're more open, because they are. Like, they actually have these incubation programs where people like you who are working on a small game can put your game up there and it'll either get voted up or voted down by the users.
And they're very open to kind of the early access sort of like, you know, games, the game in progress thing, which you can see with Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep hammering on it because I cannot believe that they're charging $60 for that thing.
Let's see. Vincent, are there any plans for GameFace on Friday? When is the next Today's High Score? Probably not going to do GameFace on Friday. This may be, now that we've done a Monday, it may be a slow evolution getting back to Friday. Maybe there's going to be a week where enough happens from that Monday to Friday that we can do a Friday show. This week might be tough. It's possible. Crazy stuff would have to...
these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday webcast.
Yeah. Something crazy would have to happen in the next few days for us to do a show on Friday, but we'll see. Today's high score, I'm thinking about doing
Also, Sam's thinking of unionizing, so that would be a whole thing.
Today's high score, I would love to do an episode this week, but we've tried to do episodes of that show during the week, and it just didn't work. And without you guys, we don't have a show. So I don't want to... It takes a lot of pre-production to do that show. I don't want to come in here, bust my butt on an episode, and then have nobody show up in the chat to do the show. So it'll probably be this Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific, just like it was in the past when we had successful episodes. Score Fear. Welcome back, Matt. Do you dig the Colossus print above Shane's head?
Yeah, I like it. I'm not going to steal it or anything, but it's cool.
Mike's cue. Shane, you look like a bumblebee. Carry on. Thanks.
Somebody's not a Barcelona fan.
Yeah. I got this shirt when I was in Barcelona, by the way. This was their kit the year that I was there, like 2012 or 2013.
It is an odd stripe choice.
Yeah, it actually goes like under the
arm,
armpit,
over the arm.
too.
Like,
it's really weird.
feel
That's
like-
why I liked it, though.
yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's kind of that line between like unique and like someone was just trying really hard to find something new to do with a stripe.
They wore this on the pitch. This is like their uniforms. It's pretty crazy. Let's see if we can find one more that's gamers related. Can we get you and Matt to stream the game one day? I don't know what you're talking about.
The game.
Stan user, any other games come to mind where your initial excitement from the teasers lessened once you saw or experienced gameplay? Well, I think we talked about two today. We talked about Sea of Thieves. Because I was really excited about Sea of Thieves. Mm-hmm. And even when I first played it, I was really excited about it, until I realized that's all there was. And now Far Cry 5. We talked about 2 here.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken
Yeah.
would be one. Like, when I got my hands on that, I was like, oh. I feel bad saying that because, I don't know. It was an awkward moment because Seth Killian was showing it, and I liked Seth a lot. But I think he knew. I think it was like, yeah, it was just when I was like, oh, that doesn't feel very good. I don't know. I'm trying to think of anything else.
I can't really think of games where once I played them, the gameplay was worse than I thought.
I would say the first Darksiders was like that for me. I didn't like that game at all. I really liked how it looked, and I liked Joe Madureira's art and all that. And when I got my hands on it, I just hated how it played. And I like it more now. I've replayed it since they did the War Mastered edition and stuff, and I like it more than I did. But I feel like I was expecting it to feel a lot less stiff and a lot more God of War-ish or Zelda-ish than it did. It felt a little... I mean, I still think it's a pretty amazing achievement that a studio's first game was a giant Zelda clone that pretty much does it. Pretty much gets there.
They nailed it pretty much.
But just, I didn't like how it felt when I first played it. And it took me a long time to kind of get over how I felt something that looked like that should feel.
Like, the actual gameplay, like response time and things like that, I'm actually pretty surprised that I can watch a trailer or gameplay of a game and I can tell how responsive the gameplay is just by watching the footage without even holding a controller. I don't know how that is. And I think that's why I'm very rarely unpleasantly surprised by a game once I finally play it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen to me much.
Now, design and how design works and progression works and things like that, sure. I've had rude awakenings many, many times with that stuff. But actually... playing the game, what it feels like to have the controller in your hands, I cannot think of too many games where I thought they were going to control well and they didn't.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Like, actually, I think the other example that comes to mind now that I think about it is The Crew. Playing The Crew, the first game, it just didn't feel right. Like the steering and everything, it just didn't behave the way I thought it should.
I think a lot of people might say that about every Grand Theft Auto, the cars. Because Grand Theft Auto has a very unique handling.
Yeah, that did seem to be a common complaint with GTA 4.
Yeah. You have to learn to just let go of the gas and use the brake in the turns and then get back on the gas once you reach the apex. But it takes people, most people are used to just holding down gas the whole time. And just being able to just go around curves. You can't do that.
I thought GTA 4. I thought GTA 4 had a really pretty impressive driving model.
Once you got used to it, yeah. I didn't have any problems with it.
But I really like GTA 4, and most people seems they did not.
Okay, that's it for GameFace 122. several huge games on today's episode. And once again, our apologies for doing it on Monday, but I think it's better than waiting an entire week to get another episode. Just one last time.
Gotta keep those takes hot.
Yep, gotta keep them hot. Just one last note before we go. If you joined in late on the stream, you have not yet subscribed to Sifted via Twitch Prime, please do that right now. Just click that little button above the player. It'll give us a free $2.50. If you're just someone who watches our stream and you're not a patron or a subscriber, please consider going to our Patreon and helping us out at patreon.com/sifted. So on behalf of Matt, who I'm very happy to have back for good, and Sam, we'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.